Chapter 21. Though the Sanyuan barrier-breaking pill wasn't the handiwork of Emperor Qingmu Dan, its recipe dates from a time long before his reign, and even then it was already rare. In those ancient days, shattering the King Realm's limits was far easier. Alchemists possessed a variety of lost elixirs that, when taken at the crucial moment, greatly improved one's chances of breaking through. Today, with those formulas gone forever, few cultivators manage the feat. Below on the plains around Haiyue City, cheers of gratitude rose in a wave. Citizens and soldiers alike bowed deeply, their voices echoing across the square. Even the heads of the 5 great half-king families, the Wang, Liu, Shen, Lu, and Zhao clans, joined in the ovation. Without Ye Cheng's intervention, they would all have been cut down by the enemy's relentless assault. At the center of the throng, the elderly Wang patriarch hesitated, glancing around as if seeking counsel from an unseen court. Then, with trembling hands, he withdrew a small golden jade token from the folds of his robe. Stepping forward, he knelt before Ye Cheng and pressed the token into his outstretched palm. "Senior, please accept this gift," the Wang patriarch said, his voice thick with emotion. "News of this jade token will spread swiftly throughout Wanyao Nanhai. When merchants, bandits, or rival clans learn that it's in our possession, they will come looking for it, and for retribution. I can think of no one more deserving or more capable of safeguarding it than you." Ye Cheng studied the smooth surface of the token, its golden veins glinting in the afternoon sun. He recognized its value at a glance. Such jade was coveted by collectors and clans alike. If he refused, the Wang family would lose face, and likely suffer dire consequences once word reached the other half-king forces. He slipped the token into his belt pouch and offered the Wang patriarch a respectful nod. "I am honored by your trust," he replied, his voice calm and steady. "Rest assured, I will keep it safe." A ripple of relief passed through the assembled crowd. With the token now under Ye Cheng's protection, the Wang family's prestige and security remained intact. And as the citizens of Haiyue City looked on with hopeful eyes, they knew that under Ye Cheng's guardianship, their future was a little brighter. Ye Cheng accepted the gift with a polite nod, though his thoughts lingered on the promise of a hidden treasure in the King Realm. The offer was tempting, but now wasn't the moment to pursue it. He'd settle that matter once he'd returned home. With that decided, Ye Cheng withdrew into seclusion in Haiyue City, dedicating himself entirely to his cultivation. As if fate itself were clearing the path, only a few days later he weathered the thunder tribulation with ease and rose to the 2nd level of the tribulation realm. It had been less than a month since he first entered the tribulation stage, a pace that defied all expectations. Not stopping there, he consumed the elixir he had recently refined. Instantly, his spiritual power surged again, pushing his breakthrough even further. Several days later, Ye Cheng emerged from his chamber. Thanks to the elixir's aid, he had vaulted from the tribulation realm's 1st level all the way to its 3rd. Outside the door, Baiheng and his sister Guqinger stood waiting, their expressions a mixture of relief and admiration. Chapter X, Ascension to the King Realm. "Congratulations, Master, on your breakthrough." The moment Ye Cheng stepped outside his chamber, Baiheng, who had been waiting in the courtyard, bowed low in salute. "A breakthrough into the King Realm, and your aura is completely stable. This confirms the realm has been consolidated. Clearly, the elixir you prepared is extraordinary." Ye Cheng glanced at his disciple's cultivation mark. Baiheng was no longer a mere half-king. He had stepped into the 1st echelon of the true King Realm, the Xuan King Realm. "All credit goes to you, Master," Baiheng said, his eyes shining with excitement he could hardly contain. "Had you not provided that elixir, I doubt I would ever have reached this level in my entire life." Even now, the reality felt surreal. The King Realm was the ultimate dream of countless half-kings, yet so few ever succeeded. Out of 100 half-step kings, not even one would typically survive the tribulation of heavenly lightning that tested their bodies and spirit. Scores had perished under its wrath, unable to withstand the divine thunder that heralded true ascension. Baiheng's heart still raced at the memory of those trials. He recalled the searing pain, the roaring thunder that seemed determined to tear his cultivation apart, and then the moment of transcendence, when lightning crackled through his veins and he emerged reborn. "Master," he whispered, voice hushed with reverence, "I won't squander this chance. Under your guidance, I will delve deeper into the King Realm's mysteries and repay your kindness." Ye Cheng nodded. His face was calm, almost inscrutable, but there was a spark of pride in his eyes. "There is still much to learn. The Xuan King Realm is only the beginning. In time, you'll face even greater tribulations, and only by overcoming them will you grow stronger." Bai Heng straightened, determination shining in his gaze. "I'm ready." Together, master and disciple walked toward the main hall, their steps echoing on the courtyard's stone floor. Around them, the sect's guards and attendants bowed respectfully, their eyes alight with awe. Word of Bai Heng's breakthrough would spread like wildfire, and his rise to the King Realm would mark only the first of many monumental shifts in their world. And so, under storm-dark skies and amid swirling currents of cultivation energy, a new chapter began for Ye Cheng and his devoted disciple, a journey that would test their resolve, forge unbreakable bonds, and reshape the very balance of power across the realms. Previously, Bai Heng and the enigmatic old man in black robes had slaughtered everyone on Haiyue Island in a desperate bid to break through to the King Realm, fully aware that such a massacre would draw the ire of king-level powers. No one expected that, with a single spirit pill, Bai Heng would shatter that barrier and ascend into the Xuanwang realm, an advancement once deemed almost impossible on the road to the King Realm. Even more astonishing, the pill left him completely unharmed. At the same time, Guqinger's cultivation has soared over the past 2 weeks, reaching the 5th level of true spirit. Such rapid progress isn't only thanks to the spirit pills provided by Ye Cheng, but also to a groundbreaking technique he developed, the Gu family Taishuan heart method. By fusing the first chapter of the Taishuan Sutra with the traditional Gu heart method, Ye Cheng elevated it from a low-tier king-level heart technique to a full emperor-level practice, far surpassing the method Qinger originally relied on. Although the original Taishuan Sutra remains far too potent to distribute, even within the clan, the refined Gu family Taishuan heart method can be taught safely to trusted disciples. Ye Cheng hovered in midair, his expression calm but determined as he laid out his next orders. "Our destination is the Gu family on Wangqin Island. Deliver Qinger into their care, then return straight to the Han Qin Empire." He let that sink in before adding the contingency. "On the way, we'll pass Chenqin Pavilion. I want to confirm a rumor. They claim to have subjugated the deputy pavilion master. If that's not true, we'll burn the pavilion to the ground." A day later, Ye Cheng and his 2 companions unfurled their spirit sails and rose into the sky, leaving Haiyue Island's white cliffs and azure waters far below. The Lanchi Islands archipelago consists of 2 major islands and countless smaller islets. To the west lies Chenqin Island, seat of the powerful Chenqin Pavilion. To the east, nestled among its satellite isles, stands Wangqin Island, ancestral home of the Gu family. For years, 2 semi-king forces, the Chenqin Pavilion and the Xianxia sect, have kept each other in check here, their uneasy balance punctuated by occasional skirmishes. Their course was set. Target the Gu family on Wangqin Island. Years of bitter rivalry had turned the 3 major sects on Langshi Island into sworn enemies, each determined to destroy the other and claim sole dominion over the island's resources. 3 days after departing their home shores, Ye Cheng and his 2 companions finally set foot on Langshi Island. Their mission was simple: infiltrate Chenqin Pavilion and confirm the rumor that its deputy pavilion master had already been eliminated. But as they approached the pavilion, something felt terribly wrong. The usual protective formation that ringed the compound stood half open, permitting entry but mysteriously preventing any exit. A heavy stillness clung to the air, as if the entire sect were holding its breath. Pushing aside the carved wooden doors, Ye Cheng entered the main hall, where a circle of senior disciples and core members had already gathered. At their center stood Pavilion Master Li, his expression grave. Elder Yang bowed deeply before speaking, sorrow tinging his voice. "Pavilion Master," Elder Yang began, "the forces of Xianxia sect and Wanhua sect have blockaded the sea lanes around Chenqin Island. Our disciples out scouting received word of the blockade, but were ambushed by the enemy's elite fighters on their return. They sustained heavy losses." A hush fell over the hall. Indeed, Qianxin Pavilion had been under mounting pressure these past weeks. Now, with their sea routes cut off and trusted disciples fallen, they faced a crisis the likes of which few within the sect had ever seen. The Qianxin Pavilion had already taken a serious blow when it lost its vice pavilion master, the only fighter who even approached the pavilion master's strength. Still, they hadn't feared the Xianxia sect, until word arrived that Xianxia's new vice pavilion master had broken through into the semi-king realm. Worse yet, an outside power, Wanhua sect, with no ties to Lanchi Islands, had struck an alliance with Xianxia. Together, they intended to drive the Qianxin Pavilion clear off the islands. And make no mistake, Wanhua sect itself was a semi-king force. Now facing two semi-king masters from Xianxia and one from Wanhua, all at the same late semi-king level as Qianxin's own pavilion master, the odds were brutally one-sided. No matter how formidable Master Ye Cheng was, even he could not stand against three semi-kings at once. The two half-kings of the Xianxia sect alone were enough to crush any ordinary opponent, let alone the addition of Wanhua sect's late half-king. Who could possibly hold out? A suffocating dread filled the vast main hall, and every cultivator's heart sank. "Damn it!" Elder Wang Zhang bellowed, slamming his fist onto the jade-inlaid stone table and shattering it into fragments. "We have to retreat. If we can't break through their encirclement, then we fight to the death." At that, Master Ye Cheng of Qianxin Pavilion, who had been standing motionless with eyes tightly shut, slowly opened them. A fierce light of defiance kindled in his gaze. "If I'm to die," he declared, voice low and unwavering, "then I will drag the beasts of Xianxia sect into the grave with me." A murmur of agreement rippled through the elders. One of them stepped forward. "Grand Elder, you are the strongest in Qianxin Pavilion after Master Gu. When the battle breaks out, you must take advantage of the chaos. Gather our most capable true disciples and lead them through any gap you can find." Master Ye Cheng turned to regard the small circle of true disciples before him, youths of exceptional talent, the bright hope of Qianxin Pavilion's future. He nodded once, grimly resolved to do whatever it took to protect them, and to avenge their fallen brethren. "If any of you manage to break free, promise me this. When you're safe, take revenge on Qianxin Pavilion," the master rasped. Even as he spoke, he knew it was a hollow hope. The two enemy factions had joined forces, and our fighters outclassed Qianxin Pavilions at every level. Escape seemed all but impossible. Only a miracle could save them now. "Master," a few true disciples stepped forward, eyes glistening with tears. "Enough." The master waved them away, his voice heavy with exhaustion. He slumped back into his wooden chair, as if decades had been stripped from his life in a single moment. "Go." "Yes, master." Obediently, the elders and disciples filed out of the main hall, leaving it deathly quiet. Master Qianxin gazed at the empty space before him, despair settling in his chest. Then, without warning, a figure appeared where no one had been. The master's heart leaped. He bolted upright, every nerve alight with shock. Standing at the far end of the hall, bathed in pale torchlight, was a young man whose calm smile seemed to still the very air. Master Qianxin's scalp prickled. Who was this intruder? More importantly, when had he slipped in without being noticed? Recognition hit him like a blow. The newcomer's gaze was steady, unafraid. It was Ye Cheng. Even a late-stage half-king, let alone a true Xuanwang realm expert, couldn't completely mask his perception. And yet this young man before him had slipped past every detection. How had he done it? Stepping forward, Ye Cheng met Master Qianxin's astonished gaze with a cool smile. "I can solve the crisis at Qianxin Pavilion," he announced, voice calm and steady. "But first, you must grant me one thing." Master Qianxin's brow furrowed. "What do you want?" he asked, suspicion sharpening his tone. Ye Cheng's smile turned wry. "The body of your deputy master." At those three words, everything clicked into place. In an instant, Master Qianxin understood the true origin of the young man standing before him. Chapter 22. The moment the young man strode into the main hall, Pavilion Master Qianxin felt the blood drain from his face. This was the king-level expert who had ordered Elders Wang and Yang to kill his deputy pavilion master, and yet he looked scarcely out of his teens. Qianxin remembered the warnings he'd heard. This benefactor was said to be unrivaled in power, capable of slaying kings with a single strike. At the time, Qianxin had worried they were exaggerating. But now, as he beheld the youth's aura, he knew they had understated the truth. He had met king-level cultivators before, but never one so young. A sudden rush of air heralded a second arrival. Beside Ye Cheng appeared an elderly man clad in white robes, his own aura resonating with king-level might. Chenxin's heart skipped. Two king-level experts together in his modest pavilion? The white-robed elder bowed deeply to Ye Cheng, confirming what Chenxin already suspected. This ancient practitioner was the youth's subordinate, bound by respect to the younger cultivator. Suppressing his fear, Chenxin reached into his storage ring and produced the body of Deputy Pavilion Master Gu Ming, still wrapped in funeral silks. He laid it carefully on the floor before the two newcomers. "It seems you weren't joking," Chenxin said, forcing his voice to remain calm. Ye Cheng inclined his head in acknowledgement, his expression unreadable. Ye Cheng stood over the fallen figure, his aura rippling through the still air. With a mere glance, he could tell this was indeed the Deputy Pavilion Master of Chenxin Pavilion, dead beyond doubt. The Pavilion Master, trembling, bowed his head. "I dare not lie, Senior. What you said is true." Ye Cheng's cold gaze didn't waver. "So you admit it? Then tell me, are you willing to accept my help and pull Chenxin Pavilion back from the brink?" The older man's voice cracked. "Our situation is dire, but if you truly are willing—" "Of course I am," Ye Cheng replied smoothly, "but there's one condition." Heart-pounding, the Pavilion Master looked up. "Name it, Senior." "From this moment on," Ye Cheng said, "Chenxin Pavilion serves at my command." At those words, the Pavilion Master's face drained of color. He'd heard of mighty warriors demanding entire sects as their vassals, but now, here he was, powerless to refuse. He swallowed hard. I understand. I swear, Chenxin Pavilion will follow your lead." Ye Cheng inclined his head. "Good. In return, I will help you ascend to the Xuan King realm." Shock froze the Pavilion Master in place. The Xuan King realm was legendary, a boundary few dared to cross. Yet Ye Cheng spoke as if it were nothing more than a daily exercise. The man could only stare, mind reeling. Originally, Ye Cheng had planned merely to confirm the deputy's death and move on. He had pressing business at the Gu estate in the Xianxia Islands, where his daughter Gu Qinger waited. But the desperate plight of Chenxin Pavilion and the strategic strength it would lend him in the South Sea had shifted his plans. He sheathed his sword with a soft hiss. "Prepare your pavilion for a new era. I leave tomorrow for the Gu estate in the Xianxia Islands. Once I return, I will guide you through the breakthrough ritual. Fail me, and our bargain ends here." The Pavilion Master bowed deeply, his mind awhirl. "Thank you, Senior Gu. Chenxin Pavilion will not fail you." Ye Cheng turned, cloak swirling, and strode away into the moonlit courtyard. In his wake, the gates of Chenxin Pavilion closed on one era and opened on another, under the command of a man whose power none in the Wanyao South Sea could rival. Since his departure, the Gu family on Wangqin Island hasn't even had a single cultivator at the Calamity Realm. In the boundless South Sea, teeming with countless monsters, they could be wiped out at any moment. They would be infinitely safer under the protection of the Chenxin Pavilion. Over these past few days, Ye Cheng had grown especially fond of Gu Qinger, his sister by blood. Perhaps it was his father's influence. Ever since he was a child, Ye Cheng was taught to honor bonds of kinship above all else. His father had always told him that should he ever encounter another branch of the Gu family, he must help them whenever possible. After all, only a handful of the Gu saints' descendants still lived, and his father's greatest wish was to see their clan rise again to the pinnacle of the spiritual domain. That, Ye Cheng realized, was the real reason he'd proposed his plan. By aiding the master of Chenxin Pavilion in breaking through to the king realm, they would elevate the pavilion into a king-class power, one strong enough to shield the Gu family on Wangqin Island. With Chenxin Pavilion at their side, not only would their safety be assured, but life itself would become far more secure and convenient. In the days to come, you won't need to hunt down rare herbs yourself. Simply send your orders to Wanyao Se or Haiyue Island, and I'll have Chenxin Pavilion handle everything. We can even help you break through the Xuanwang realm. Those few words were enough to make the master of Chenxin Pavilion gape in astonishment. He wasn't refusing to believe Ye Cheng. After all, the young man before him was already in the king realm, but the idea that Ye Cheng could accelerate someone else's advancement through the king realm struck him as extraordinary. Not long ago, I was only a mid-king realm cultivator, Bai Heng added quietly from Ye Cheng's side. That single confession spoke volumes. If Bai Heng had so recently been only mid-king realm and was now a full king realm powerhouse, then the white-robed elder standing beside Ye Cheng must have been the one who guided his breakthrough. Finally, blinking back his shock, the pavilion master forced himself to speak. Chen, go and pay respects to our benefactor. Chen, Ye Cheng's senior disciple, bowed deeply before Ye Cheng. The pavilion master had little choice. Without Ye Cheng's intervention, Chenxin Pavilion could never have held off the combined onslaught of Xianxia sect and Wanhua sect. He was not personally afraid of death, but he could not bear to see countless elders and disciples slaughtered. And so, with the weight of his gratitude pressing upon him, the master of Chenxin Pavilion knelt before Ye Cheng, sealing their new alliance in humility and hope. Ye Cheng leaned back in his seat, eyes glinting with quiet confidence. If I can really help you break into the king realm, then joining my army won't be a burden. It'll be your greatest opportunity yet. And even if you don't reach the king realm, serving under a sovereign-level expert like me will benefit both Chenxin Pavilion and yourself. He paused, letting his words sink in. Next, I'll guide you through the breakthrough. But for now, keep this between us, he added, voice dropping low. Don't let the others catch wind of our arrangement. We don't want to spook them. He was referring, of course, to the Xianxia sect and the Wanhua sect, powerful clans whose cultivators had already sealed off the sea routes around Chenxin Pavilion. The moment his ally stood in the king realm, Ye Cheng vowed the pavilion itself would ascend to sovereign status. And when that day came, the disciples of Xianxia and Wanhua would make the perfect sacrifices to showcase his newfound power. 2 days later, the disciplined ranks of Xianxia and Wanhua poured into the city. Massive formation arrays shimmered overhead, warding off intruders. Without those protections, a single platoon of their elite warriors could have torn down the pavilion's gates and razed everything inside. Now, however, they waited, curious, cautious, and completely unaware of the pact forming at their doorstep. From the grand elders down to the lowest apprentice, every disciple of Chenxin Pavilion drew their blades, eyes blazing with the resolve to die for their sect, to live and die together. That fierce unity stirred something in Ye Cheng. He coldly called out, Chen, why don't you step up and meet your end? Before anyone could answer, a thunder-ouse roar split the air. 3 figures strode across the void and materialized above the pavilion. Half-king cultivators can't truly fly like those in the king realm, but they can hover long enough to make an entrance. The newcomers were unmistakable, the Lord Leader and Deputy Leader of Xianxia sect and the Grand Master of Wanhua sect. Their arrival sent the Xianxia and Wanhua disciples into raucous cheers. At that moment, a white-haired elder emerged from the pavilion's halls. His gaze was grave as he looked up at the 3 hovering masters, and beneath his simple robes, the aura of a half-king realm shimmered unmistakably. Grand Elder! Someone cried out. A chorus of voices followed. This venerable figure wasn't Chenxin Pavilion's sect leader, but its esteemed Grand Elder. At the mention of his rank, the crowd fell silent, only to erupt again a heartbeat later. Grand Elder, he's broken through. Splendid, the Grand Elder declared with a nod of satisfaction. 2 half-kings on our side now, someone cried triumphantly. But it's still not enough, another replied, frustration heavy in his voice. No one, not even the stunned cultivators of Chenxin Pavilion, had expected their Grand Elder to break through at such a critical moment. Yet despite his ascent to the half-king realm, the battle's outcome remained unchanged. The allied forces of Xianxia and Wanhua sects fielded 3 half-kings of their own, 2 of whom had already reached the late stage of half-king cultivation. If it weren't for that damned Wanhua sect, one bitter voice muttered, Chenxin Pavilion wouldn't fear Xianxia at all. Resentment rippled through the Chenxin ranks. From the rear, the sect master of Xianxia sect watched coolly. He offered a slow, mocking clap. Well, Grand Elder, he drawled, I half expected you to be buried under our assault. Congratulations on breaking into the half-king realm, truly surprising. But let's face reality. A newly minted half-king barely scratches the surface. It won't shift the tide of this battle. He let the words hang in the air, his gaze sweeping the exhausted faces before him. Had we not sealed this alliance with Wanhua sect, Chengxin Pavilion might still have a fighting chance. But that ship has sailed. Ye Cheng paid an enormous price to win over the master of the Wanhua sect. Now today, the Chengxin Pavilion must be destroyed. Chapter 23, Grand Elder. Hidden in the void above Chengxin Island, Master Chengxin, Ye Cheng, and Bai Heng watched the chaos unfolding below. None of them was in a hurry to reveal their presence. Moments ago, Master Chengxin's aura had leapt beyond the demi-king realm into the true profound king realm. Thanks to the Sanyuan barrier-breaking pill, he had met almost no resistance during the king tribulation, and in a flash his cultivation soared to new heights. Ye Cheng and Bai Heng exchanged astonished looks. This breakthrough had nothing to do with outside aid, but was born of Master Chengxin's own desperate, untapped potential. As the three warriors took in Master Chengxin's newly magnified aura, Ye Cheng smirked. Looks like we have another contender. Today's turning into quite the spectacle. Before they could react further, a second demi-king aura surged toward Chengxin Pavilion. In an instant, a roiling energy vortex signaled the arrival of yet another powerhouse. Bai Heng's eyes glittered with anticipation. Let them come. The more they send, the more we can test our strength. A cold, mocking voice then rang out from above the pavilion roof. What a lively gathering. The fooling sect simply couldn't miss this party. A tall figure descended through the swirling energies, his expression as frosty as the winds of the king tribulation. With a casual toss of his sleeve, he surveyed the three hidden cultivators. Ye Cheng's smile turned sharp. Bai Heng's grip tightened on his sword hilt, and Master Chengxin, newly crowned profound king, stood ready to welcome his latest challengers. Below them, Chengxin Island trembled with the promise of an all-out clash. The air crackled, signaling that today no one would leave unscathed. Master Fuling's arrival cast an immediate chill over the hall. Even the three half-kings from Xianxia sect and Wanhua sect exchanged uneasy glances. Fuling sect? Everyone here knew the name well. Among the top-tier powers in the South Sea, both Chengxin Pavilion and Xianxia sect boasted a late half-king, an apex cultivator whose strength was widely respected. Wanhua sect's leader had only just broken through to that same level, so their core disciples were still a step below. Fuling sect, however, eclipsed them all. Its sect leader stood in the late half-king stage, and its deputy led disciples at the mid-half-king realm. Master Xianxia raised a hand to still the restless murmurs of his deputy and the Wanhua master at his side. Maintaining a calm facade, he met Master Fuling's gaze. Master Kang, what brings you here today? A slow smile curved on Master Fuling's lips. I won't beat around the bush. Master Fuling smiled thinly as he rose from his seat. I, Elder Fuling, stake claim to Chengxin Pavilion's spiritual mine on Qianmeng Island. Should both of you consent, I will withdraw from today's deliberations altogether. A stunned murmur swept through the hall. Qianmeng Island contained Chengxin Pavilion's largest and most prized spiritual deposit. To lose it would be to surrender nearly a third of their total assets. Master Xianxia's expression darkened to a hard glare. And if I refuse your demand? Elder Fuling's eyes gleamed with cold amusement. Then I shall have no choice but to realign my support. Consider this. The Elder of Chengxin Pavilion has just broken through to the semi-king realm. Add the leader of Chenyun Pavilion to that, and then my own 2 semi-kings from the Fuling sect, and you have 4 semi-kings working in concert. He paused, letting the implication sink in. Do you truly believe yourselves strong enough to stand against us? Silence fell like a shroud. The disciples of Chengxin Pavilion exchanged anxious glances, their unease plain for all to see. No one dared speak. Despite being one of Longxi Island's 2 premier powers, Chengxin Pavilion now hung in the balance like a fish on a chopping block, completely at the mercy of its rivals. In the Grand Hall, the leader of Xianxia sect ground out through clenched teeth. Very well, I agree. Anger flashed in his eyes, but he had no choice. The Fuling sect's threat was plain. Should they join forces with Xianxia, Chengxin Pavilion would face utter disaster. A rich, mirthful laugh rang out. Fuling sect's leader leaned forward, his smile unfazed by the tension around him. Ha! Refreshingly blunt. I admire your straightforwardness, sect leader. Rest assured, I am no empty promise maker. I will deal with Ye Cheng, master of Chengxin Pavilion, personally. As they spoke, the three sects quietly carved up Chengxin Pavilion's holdings among themselves. Back at the pavilion, every disciple felt the walls closing in. First came the duress of Xianxia and Wanhua. Now the Fuling sect, no weaker, perhaps even stronger, added its full weight to the assault. It was as if fate itself conspired against them. Deep despair settled over Chengxin Pavilion. Their allies gone, their resources pillaged, their future uncertain. All agreed on one grim truth. It seemed the heavens desired nothing more than the pavilion's complete destruction. Isn't it a little too disrespectful to divvy up Chengxin Pavilion's spoils right in front of its gates? A cool voice cut through the murmur. In an instant, a tall figure materialized in midair, Ye Cheng, master of Chengxin Pavilion. His eyes swept indifferently across the assembled elders and disciples of the Fuling and Xianxia sects. "Master!" came their unified cry. From the crowd, the leader of Xianxia sect sneered, Well, Ye Cheng, you finally showed your face. I thought you'd be too afraid to come out." He paced forward, voice dripping with contempt. "All those years of grudges between us are about to settle once and for all." Ye Cheng met his gaze calmly. "Indeed, it's over." He shifted his attention to the leader of Fuling sect. "As for you, leader Fuling, we've never had any quarrel. Chengxin Pavilion has no beef with your sect. I'll give you one chance. If you withdraw now, I'll overlook what's happened today." A harsh laugh answered him. The Fuling leader's eyes glittered with amusement. "You actually think I'd back down? You'll regret even uttering such a thing." He shook his head, disbelief clear in his tone. "Honestly, Ye Cheng, have you lost your senses?" Tension crackled around the three leaders as they squared off under the silent banners of Chengxin Pavilion. Whatever came next would decide more than just a handful of treasures. It would decide the fate of their entire world. Didn't he understand how desperate the situation was? Just as the leader of Fuling opened his mouth to speak, a suffocating pressure exploded outward from the heart of the Chengxin Pavilion, silencing everyone in its wake. At the same moment, two imposing figures, Ye Cheng and Bai Heng, appeared in the sky above Chengxin Island. Along with Master Chengxin, they formed a perfect triangle that encircled Fuling's leader and the entire Wanhua branch of the Xianxia sect. In unison, all three King Realm masters unleashed their aura. The oppressive force twisted the faces of Fuling's leader, the head of the Xianxia sect, and their disciples into looks of sheer terror. This is King Realm power," someone stammered. "Master Chengxin has broken through to the King Realm," another whispered in disbelief. "And those two beside him, they're King Realm cultivators as well." Within the minds of the four semi-King Realm masters amassed nearby, panic flared. They had known Master Chengxin as a late semi-King Realm cultivator, far from full mastery, let alone possession of true King Realm might. How could he have transcended so swiftly? And who were these two new King Realm geniuses, Ye Cheng and Bai Heng? Their sudden emergence threw every expectation into chaos. The three King Realm masters had already sealed off every road of retreat. Escape was impossible. Everyone froze in astonishment, the leader of the Fuling sect, the adepts of Xianxia and Wanhua, even the elders and disciples of Chengxin Pavilion. Their master, Ye Cheng, had actually broken through to the King Realm? In an instant, despair melted away, replaced by jubilant elation. Chapter 24. "I warned you, you'll regret this." Pavilion Master Chengxin's voice was as cold and flat as steel. In an instant, the very forces of heaven and earth surged around him, coalescing into a colossal spectral hand that slammed down upon the four cultivators of the Fuling sect. "No!" The four semi-king masters tried to flee, but in the presence of a true King Realm expert, their movements were no swifter than a turtle's crawl. With a single thunderous crack, Chengxin's palm strike obliterated them, and with them, countless elders and disciples of the Xianxia and Wanhua sects, reducing every last one to nothing but a veil of red mist. Not a single corpse remained. The devastation was horrifying. The chasm between the semi-king realm and a genuine king realm was vast. Even a perfected semi-king, in the face of a true king realm master, was nothing more than a large ant underfoot. Though Chengxin himself had only recently broken through to the early Xuan King stage, and his realm still trembled with instability, It had been as effortless for him to snuff out those semi-kings as it was to pinch ants to death. Below the pavilion platform, the senior officials and disciples of Chenshin Pavilion stood frozen, shock rippling through them. He had only just stepped into the king realm, and already his power left them all reeling. Each of the invaders had a fearsome reputation across the Xianxia Islands, and even in the surrounding seas. Yet in the shadow of the Chenshin Pavilion Master, they shattered like brittle porcelain. Was this truly the power of the king realm? Terrifying hardly began to describe it. With their leaders down, disciples of the Xianxia and Wanhua sects scattered in panic. Ye Cheng's cold voice cut through their flight. "Leave no one alive." He spoke slowly, deliberately. Mercy had no place here. "Yes, master," came the thunderous reply from Chenshin Pavilion's head and Bai Heng, both king realm masters in their own right. In an instant, the remaining intruders were wiped from existence. Below the pavilion steps, the assembled cultivators stared in disbelief. They had heard the title Master twice in as many seconds, once from the Pavilion Master, once from Bai Heng, both directed at Ye Cheng. Among them were Huang Yingying, Elder Wang, Elder Yang, and the others, who all remembered the peerless swordsman who had felled a king-level sea monster with a single strike. And now their own Pavilion Master was calling him Master? They must have misheard. When the last enemy fell, Ye Cheng turned to Bai Heng. His tone held no hint of doubt. "Our next target is the Fooling Sect. I want them destroyed." He never left loose ends. Under the blazing midday sun, the Chenshin Pavilion prepared for its next campaign. Ye Cheng's creed in battle was unambiguous: leave no enemy standing. "I understand," Bai Heng replied, bowing respectfully before launching into the sky. Less than an hour later, he appeared like a shooting star above the Fooling Sect's front gate. The unsuspecting cultivators below barely had time to register his arrival before Bai Heng's palm, charged with crushing force, slammed into their island stronghold. The entire gate platform shattered, and the rocky islet slipped beneath the waves in an instant. Even the sect's deputy leader, a half-king in mid-stage seclusion, was caught off guard. He tried to marshal his strength, but Bai Heng's palm strike obliterated him on the spot. Within moments, the island, and every one of the Fooling Sect's 1,000 disciples, had been buried by the roiling sea, their screams swallowed by the depths. Onlookers at a nearby reef gaped in horror. The Fooling Sect was renowned throughout the Wanyao South Sea, stronger even than Chenshin Pavilion and Xianxia Sect, the two other great powers of the Xianxia Islands. Yet here it lay, utterly annihilated, not a single survivor. This can't be real," whispered one stunned witness. "Give it time," another murmured, voice trembling. "News of this massacre will spread across the South Sea in no time." Chenshin Pavilion M. Aster Chen Yun had already informed the Great Elder and all the senior leaders of the sect about his decision to place Chenshin Pavilion under Ye Cheng's authority. No one objected. In fact, they were overflowing with gratitude. Had it not been for Ye Cheng's timely intervention, their pavilion would have perished long ago. Thanks to him, not only did Master Chen Yun achieve the breakthrough into the king realm, but Chenshin Pavilion itself has now been elevated to king-level status. Until now, even the loftiest elders never dared to dream of such an ascent. Across the vast reaches of Wanyao Nanhai, there are tens of thousands of sects, dozens at the half-king level, but true king-level powers number barely a dozen. Master Chen Yun is still young, so there remains a slim hope that he might push even further beyond the king realm someday. Yet for the moment, that dream remains nothing more than a faint glimmer on the horizon. Chapter 7. The King Realm Tribulation. A low rumble rolled across the courtyards of Chenshin Pavilion as dark clouds gathered overhead, crackling with divine lightning. The King Realm Thunder Tribulation was upon them, a trial notorious for shattering even the most stalwart cultivators. Countless souls had fallen beneath its wrath, their bones bleached and scattered by lightning's fury. Yet at the pavilion's center, Ye Cheng sat in tranquil meditation, his aura undisturbed. Moments ago, he had guided Pavilion Master Chen Yun past the same tempest and into the King Realm unscathed. Master Chen, long regarded as one of the pavilion's finest, knelt before him in humble gratitude. "Ye Cheng, without your insight, I would surely have failed," he confessed, voice thick with emotion. Word of the miracle spread through Chengxin Pavilion in an instant. Whispers floated from the outer gates to the inner hall. Ye Cheng's methods were unparalleled. Many believed he would soon top the spirit rankings, perhaps even ascend to emperor one day. To serve under such a prodigy was no small privilege. Meanwhile, Gu Qing'er, Ye Cheng's younger sister, found herself the center of attention for her own astonishing rise. Only days ago she'd been an outer disciple with no claim to fame. Now Pavilion Master Chen Xin had personally anointed her as the pavilion's sole saint. In a whirlwind of auditions, she'd passed through the inner gate, core, and true teaching levels in record time. Qing'er blinked at the ceremonial robes draped over her slender frame. I never expected this, she admitted, voice soft with bewilderment. She glanced around at the assembled disciples, some beaming with pride, others quietly envious. A few core disciples glanced away, their expressions a tangle of respect and reluctant jealousy. As the applause died down, a familiar pulse stirred within Ye Cheng's dantian. His own breakthrough was imminent. With a respectful nod to his sister and both pavilion masters, he rose and slipped away toward the secluded meditation chamber carved into the mountainside. Outside, thunder rolled once more, its savage power poised to strike. But at Chengxin Pavilion, all eyes were on the lone figure stepping into the storm, ready to claim a place among legends. Chapter Text: The Rise of Chengxin Pavilion. In the wake of his decisive victory, Ye Cheng focused on consolidating his newfound power. Word of the Battle of Chengxin Pavilion swept across the entire Wanyao South Sea in a matter of days. Rumors whispered that Ye Cheng himself had broken through into the King Realm, and that 2 other King Realm masters stood ready at his side. Such news could not be contained. Before long, envoys from countless prominent sects and powers in the surrounding seas arrived to offer congratulations. With Ye Cheng's breakthrough, Chengxin Pavilion was formally recognized as a king-level force, instantly elevating it into the elite circle of sects dominating the Wanyao South Sea. The nearest of these king-level powers was Qingluan Palace, an ancient order boasting a 10,000-year legacy. Its current palace master had long ago perfected the Xuan monarch realm and was even on the verge of stepping into the Heaven monarch realm. Today, Qingluan Palace's deputy palace master made the journey in person, bearing gifts, congratulations, and a sincere offer of friendship. Deputy Palace Master Li himself is a powerhouse at the Xuan King realm, more than enough to demonstrate just how prestigious Qingluan Palace truly is. After all, if he were merely a freshly promoted King Realm cultivator, he wouldn't merit such a post. Yet to Qingluan's master, the newly minted Chengxin Pavilion was anything but ordinary. Its pavilion lord, Chen Yun, had astoundingly vaulted from half-king perfection all the way to the full king realm in one bound. Add to that the 2 other mysterious king-level experts he'd gathered, and it was clear Chengxin Pavilion concealed far more than met the eye. Riding this wave of speculation, Chen Yun announced that in 1 week's time, Chengxin Pavilion would host its first grand discipleship ceremony. The pavilion's current disciples were few, many had fallen recently, and only a handful remained, an astonishingly small number compared with other King Realm sects, whose ranks often swelled into the tens of thousands. No sooner had the news broken than aspiring cultivators across the Lanchi Islands began preparing their petitions. Talented youths everywhere were already counting down the days. Although their talents didn't quite match those of established king-level disciples, Chengxin Pavilion had only just been promoted to a king-level force, and its entry standards weren't any tougher than those of the older sects. Naturally, everyone was eager to give it a shot. After all, what if they succeeded? Even as outer disciples of a newly minted king-level sect, they'd command respect the moment they stepped outside. Who in their right mind would refuse to look up to them? Who would dare pick a fight? Chapter 25. Outside the Gu family mansion on Wangqin Island, a small company of the clan's younger generation stood ready to depart. They weren't just any relatives, but among the brightest hopes of the Gu household. At their head stood Patriarch Gu Qian, bidding them farewell with a mixture of pride and concern. "Xier," he said softly, brushing a loose strand of hair from his second daughter's face, "this will be your first time off the island. The world beyond Wangqin is very different. You must follow the third elder's instructions exactly. Do you understand? Gu Qian had no sons, only 2 daughters. His eldest, Gu Qinger, had joined the Chenxin Pavilion as an outer disciple several years ago. More than half a year ago, Qinger sent a letter declaring her intention to challenge for the inner gate. Since then, no word had come from her. Now it was 15-year-old Xier's turn. Though still young, her talent already surpassed Qinger's at the same age. In earlier days, her ability alone would have secured her a place in the pavilion. No gifts, no backdoor favors necessary. But times had changed, and even the Gu family now had to offer tokens of goodwill to smooth their path. Gu Qian nodded once more, meeting Xier's determined gaze. With that, the group set out from the courtyard, each carrying the family's hopes and the promise of new challenges beyond the island's shores. But Chenxin Pavilion today is a far cry from what it once was. When Ye Cheng first sent off his elder daughter, Qinger, it was only a half-king-level sect. Now it has risen to true king-level status, and with that elevation comes much stricter requirements for new disciples. Ye Cheng couldn't be certain that his second daughter, Xier, would pass the forthcoming assessment and win a place among Chenxin Pavilion's ranks. Still, they had to try. That was the purpose of today's farewell. Not just for Xier, but for several other talented youths of the clan who all dreamed of the same opportunity. If even one of them were chosen, if they passed the trials and became disciples of Chenxin Pavilion, it would mark a monumental step forward in their cultivation journey. No wonder so many families across the Xianxia Islands held their breath at news of the coming assessment. Xier herself looked every bit the part of a hopeful initiate, porcelain-smooth skin, rosy cheeks, a face that bore a striking resemblance to her sister Qinger. She stood before her father, eyes bright with determination, and nodded solemnly at his final words of counsel. "Dad, I understand. I'll follow Third Elder's guidance. Rest assured, Patriarch, we'll keep a low profile and stir up no trouble." A few other younger members of the Gu clan echoed the promise. Patriarch Gu Qian nodded approvingly, stroking his long white beard. "One more thing. Find your sister first. I don't know if Qinger has earned an inner gate position yet, but if she has, she may be able to help you. As soon as you arrive at the Chenxin Pavilion, get in touch with her." "Big sister." Gu Xier's bright eyes glistened. "It's been over a year since I last saw you." Since childhood, Xier had been Qinger's shadow, always tagging along until her sister departed for Chenxin Pavilion years ago. With final farewells said, the group fell in behind Third Elder and made their way to the harbor. Soon they would board a vessel bound for Chenxin Island, home of the prestigious Chenxin Pavilion, and take part in the long-anticipated recruitment ceremony. Ye Cheng leaned against the railing as the sea breeze tousled his hair. After nearly 2 days weaving through the Xianxia archipelago, the ship was finally approaching Chenxin Island, the home of the famed Chenxin Pavilion. He and his companions had received strict orders from the Gu family's head, keep a low profile. Outside their home territory of Wangqin Island, no one even recognized the Gu name. On the vast stage of the islands, their reputation counted for nothing. The Third Elder, a true spirit practitioner at the 8th level, was charged with their protect ion. His cultivation was more than sufficient for coastal waters, but by Longxi standards, he was barely a match for an average pavilion disciple. To avoid conflict, they had remained almost invisible these 2 days, barely leaving their cramped cabin, quietly observing as the world passed by. Now, with Chenxin Island's jagged peaks drawing nearer, the Elder finally granted them freedom to stretch their legs. Ye Cheng practically leapt off the deck onto solid ground. After 48 hours cooped up below decks, the fresh air felt like a blessing, and their stomachs joined in the celebration. Around them, dozens of other hopefuls disembarked. Teenagers brandishing neatly pressed recruitment forms, young adults hefting luggage or showing off their budding qi-sensing abilities. All of them, like Ye Cheng, had come to try their luck at the pavilion's annual recruitment ceremony. "Stay together," the Third Elder reminded in a low voice. "No duels, no arguments, and absolutely no drawing attention. Remember our family's instructions." Ye Cheng offered a quick salute. "Understood, Elder." His heart pounded with excitement. This was the moment he'd been preparing for his entire life. They stepped onto the docks, where colorful banners fluttered overhead, each inscribed with the Qianxin Pavilion's crest. Lanterns shaped like koi and turtles lined the wooden planks, casting warm light over the morning fog. Merchant stalls skirted the quay, hawking everything from spirit-steamed buns to copper incense holders. Prospective disciples paused to examine the goods, but Cheng's gaze remained fixed on the elegant stone steps that led up through a citadel of green roofs and marble columns, the path to the pavilion's grand hall. "Let's go," he whispered to his friends, eyes shining. After days of waiting, the real journey was about to begin. Guxier had never been on the open sea before, and she couldn't contain her excitement. She darted along the deck, eyes wide as she took in every detail. "Third sister," she cried, tugging at the sleeve of the third daughter in the family. "What kind of fish is that? It's so beautiful. Look at those colors, like a rainbow." Then she spotted something larger not far off. "And what's that? It's enormous. Are you sure it won't attack our merchant ship?" Her barrage of questions was like a child's, relentless and full of wonder. The eldest elder, standing nearby, managed a wry smile and shook his head. He'd grown almost too cautious to leave home, and much of that was because of Guxier. She'd inherited her mother's and the family patriarch's incredible looks, a face so arresting it could bring kingdoms to their knees, nearly matching the famed beauty of her elder sister, Gu Chinger. In their world, extraordinary beauty was far more than a compliment, it was a liability. Tales of magnificent women seized as tribute, forced into servitude, or worse, boiled alive in sacrificial cauldrons, were alarmingly common. The eldest elder's protectiveness wasn't born of superstition, but of hard-earned caution. But Guxier paid none of this heed. She bounced on the balls of her feet, eyes still shining. "You've never seen fish like these before? Please tell me everything." Suppressing a sigh, the eldest elder looked out at the shimmering water, and for the moment decided there was no harm in indulging her curiosity. "All right," he said, "let's start with the fish you saw closest to the hull." As soon as they reached the outer ring of Qianxin Island's territory, the party finally felt safe enough to let Guxier step out for a stroll. True to form, her striking appearance drew an immediate reaction from the onlookers. Some gazes even gleamed with ill intent. They noted, too, that the strongest among her escort was only the third elder, an 8th-level true spirit at best. Still, now that they were officially within Qianxin Island's borders, no one dared risk open trouble. Mr. Kui has arrived. Guxier and her companions had just entered the grand dining hall, eager to sample the exotic dishes and wines unavailable back on Wonkin Island. At that moment, the announcement rang out. The conversation hushed, and all eyes, once fixed on Guxier, turned toward the entrance. There, a young man of striking presence strolled in, a folding fan held casually in one hand. A retinue of sycophants followed close behind, hanging on his every step. "Who is that?" one of the Gu family members murmured. It was clear that nearly everyone in the hall recognized the newcomer, everyone except them. They'd barely stepped out of their cabins since boarding, so of course they didn't recognize any of the ship's VIPs. "You probably haven't ventured into the main hall much," the woman at the next table volunteered, watching Kuyong enter with a hint of reverence. "That's Mr. Kuyong. His family's not ordinary. He's the young master of the Kui clan on Changyuan Island." "Changyuan Island? The Kui family?" Guxier and her companions exchanged bewildered glances. It was Guxier's first voyage beyond Wangqin Island, so she really did know almost nothing about the wider world. The other Gu siblings had sailed a few times before, but their knowledge of the Langshi archipelago's major islands and powerful families was equally thin. "You've never heard of Changyuan Island or the Kui family?" the woman scoffed, her desire to show off deflating the moment she took in their blank expressions. What a bunch of provincial bumpkins. She shook her head, no longer interested in impressing such an unrefined audience. Vanity is never satisfied, and ultimately, it's a waste of time. The younger members of the Gu family shifted uncomfortably. They really had no idea what the woman was talking about. But the third elder, who had heard of the Kui family and Changyuan Island, stepped forward. He relayed her words to Guxier and the other juniors. The Langshi archipelago is made up of numerous islands. The two largest are controlled by Qianxin Pavilion and the now-defunct Xianxia sect. Beyond those, there are 5 medium-sized isles, Changyuan Island being one of them. On Changyuan, the Kuai family reigns supreme. They command no fewer than 10 masters at the robbery realm, and their grand elder even holds an official position among the elders of Chengqin Pavilion. At this revelation, the Gu family's young disciples swallowed hard, their faces paling. Over 10 robbery realm masters, and a grand elder tied directly to Chengqin Pavilion. With that kind of might, the Kui family ranked just below Chengqin Pavilion itself among the archipelago's most formidable powers. Suddenly, the woman's earlier insult, calling them bumpkins, made perfect sense. Anyone who spent time at sea and knows anything about the Lanchi Islands understands just how dominant the Kuai family is. When the younger members of the Gu clan gaped at the mention of their name, Lady Zhang couldn't hide a small, pleased smile. With a supreme elder already sitting on Chengqin Pavilion's council, she said, voice hushed but charged with excitement, Master Kui won't even have to sit the entrance exam. He'll be granted direct admission. I can't help but envy him. Her words set the entire hall abuzz. Who here didn't envy Master Kui? Chengqin Pavilion today is an indisputable king-level power. Its standards might not be as archaic as some ancient orders, but they're ruthless. Tens of thousands of hopefuls showed up for this year's recruitment ceremony. Only a few hundred will actually make it inside. Standing off to the side, Ye Cheng exchanged glances with his cousins, Gu Xie and the others. Suddenly it all made sense. The flattery, the fawning entourages around Kui Yong. With a supreme elder in his corner, even the mere handful of allies he chooses to butter up could earn themselves places within Chengqin Pavilion without ever facing the gauntlet of tests. No wonder everyone was clamoring to get close to him. Admittedly, Gu Xie and the others felt a sting of envy. With one of their own clan elders sitting on the Chengqin Pavilion's council, Ye Cheng didn't have to endure the grueling entry examinations. He could simply register, and be accepted outright as a pavilion disciple. Chapter 26, Huh? A young man from the Gu family stared in surprise at the youth standing beside Kui Yong, his face alight with obsequious admiration. Isn't that Changping? On Wangqin Island, power lay in the hands of 3 great clans, the Shus, the Changs, and the Gus, home to sisters Gu Xie and Gu Zhener. The young man before them belonged to the Gu family and instantly recognized Changping, the Chang household's second son, a familiar figure around the island. Whispers rippled through the Gu contingent and even reached Gu Xie. It really is him. One of the Gu heirs scoffed. The Chang family's second young master, and he's groveling for favors like some stray dog? Pathetic. His contempt was plain for all to hear, even drawing the attention of a woman at a neighboring table. She glanced over, arched an eyebrow, and offered a cool, amused smile. And pray tell, what's so disgraceful about loyalty? The third matriarch's voice cut through the murmurs in the hall. Someone like you wouldn't even get a chance to fawn over him. You! The Gu heir shot to his feet, fury reddening his face, but the matriarch's sharp slap sent him sprawling back into his chair. She was a known devotee of Mr. Kui, and though her words stung, they rang true. Dozens in this room were scrambling for Kui Yong's favor, yet few ever caught even his eye. A hush fell as the scandalized Gu family members settled into tense whispers. Kui Yong raised an eyebrow and turned his head. That single glance stopped him cold. Across the hall stood Gu Xie, and in that moment, every other face blurred into insignificance. Her beauty was flawless, delicate features framed by silk-dark hair, eyes that sparkled with both wit and warmth. He couldn't look away. She's breathtaking, he breathed. A genuine sigh escaped him. Though he'd grown up as the young master of the Kui clan, surrounded by adoring beauties, none had ever moved him like this. Changping, standing at his side, watched Kui Yong's dazed expression and frowned. He followed his friend's gaze and froze. Gu Xie? He whispered. It was a name and a face they both knew all too well. On Wangqin Island, the Gu family's 2 daughters were renowned beauties, and no shortage of suitors had come calling. Changping was among them. He journeyed from one end of the island to the other in hopes of winning either Gu Qinger or her younger sister, Gu Xie. But try as he might, neither sister had ever given him more than a perfunctory nod. That was why what happened next set Changping's heart racing. As he stood beside Master Kui at the entrance to Chengqin Pavilion, he noticed Master Kui's gaze drift repeatedly to Gu Xie. lingering far longer than mere courtesy demanded. Hope flared bright in Changping's chest. Master Kui was a man of influence. An introduction from him could well spare Changping the entire entrance examination. Swallowing a surge of excitement, Changping leaned forward and spoke in a low, urgent tone. Master Kui, are you interested in Guxier? Startled, Master Kui tore his eyes away from the sisters and looked at Changping with mild surprise. Guxier, you know her? Of course, Changping replied eagerly. We're both from Wangqin Island. How could I not know her? Please, Master Kui, allow me to introduce you. A triumphant grin spread across Changping's face. This could be his golden ticket, direct entry into Chenxin Pavilion without setting foot in the examination hall. After all, he had long admired both Gu Qinger and Gu Xie, though neither had ever offered him more than a sidelong glance. Now at last, everything might be about to change. I can't win her anyway, so why not? After all, getting to know a woman this beautiful is only natural. Let's go. Guiyang fixed Changping with a deep, admiring stare, and Changping's heart thundered at the intensity of it. From across the glade, Gu Xie caught sight of the two men approaching and felt a jolt of unease. The third elder, standing at her side, frowned in response. Stay calm, he whispered. We're all race, Addy on Dust Heart Island. Even the young master of the Kui family won't dare to act recklessly here. Guiyang swept into a polite bow. Miss Gu, what a pleasure to run into you. Changping hurried to echo his friend's greeting, as though they were old acquaintances. Indeed, a small world, Miss Gu. Gu Xie met their words with a cool, unbothered glance. She may have envied Guiyang for slipping straight into the Dust Heart Pavilion without taking the test, but envy did not translate into fondness. Beneath Guiyang's courteous smile, she recognized that all-too-familiar gleam of lust in his eyes, and it revolted her. Changping stepped forward, clearing his throat. Allow me to introduce. This is Mr. Guiyang from Changyun Island. Before he could finish, Guiyang's voice cut in. Why are you making a fuss over this? Changping's face went a shade redder. Pardon me, I forgot you dislike formalities. Forgive the awkward introduction. He forced a polite smile and bowed slightly toward the young woman beside him. My daughter, Gu Xie, has the honor of meeting you, Mr. Kui. Gu Xie's brows knit in distaste. She rose slowly, her slender shoulders tense. Though she found Guiyang insufferable and couldn't hide her impatience, his reputation gave her pause. She dared not offend him outright. She offered him a curt nod. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Kai, but I'm feeling unwell. Please excuse me. Without waiting for his reply, she turned and strode away. Guiyang opened his mouth, as if to call after her, then thought better of it. The boat was already entering Chenxin Island's waters, a realm where his considerable influence held little sway. He clenched his jaw, feeling the sting of her icy departure more keenly for the silence he'd imposed on himself. Guiyang's expression darkened. As the young master of the Kui family, he was used to women flocking around him. Hardly any could float his boat enough to make him take the initiative. Yet when he had reached out politely to Gu Xie, hoping to strike up a conversation, she'd slapped him down without a second thought. The sting of rejection quickly gave way to anger, and the polite veneer he usually presented began to slip away. A pretty socialite beside him leaned in with a mocking smile. Even Master Kui had to go after her himself, she drawled. This Gu Xie must really think the world of herself. I wonder what sort of backing she has to turn him down so blatantly. Her words kindled jealousy. She'd long hoped to win Guiyang's attention, only to be dismissed in favor of someone else, and now that someone else was openly snubbing him. A few other onlookers chimed in with their own sneers, whispering about how ungrateful Gu Xie appeared and how lucky she should consider herself. Guiyang's lips curled into a half-smile as the tension eased from his shoulders. He turned to Changping, who stood respectfully to one side. I hear she has a sister, he said quietly, and that the sister is a disciple of Chenxin Pavilion. Is that true? Master Kui's brow furrowed as he watched the young woman walk away. She obviously doesn't take me seriously, he muttered. Her sister must be someone important in Chenxin Pavilion. There's no way she's just an ordinary disciple. Changping couldn't help but snort. He leaned forward and said, Master Kui, you're imagining things. Yes, her sister is in Chenxin Pavilion, but only as an outer disciple. The only reason she got in at all was because her father donated a fortune. Kui let out a derisive chuckle. Changping threw his head back and laughed aloud. An outer disciple, that's all? Here I thought she was some prodigy, the kind of woman bold enough to turn down you, Master Kui. The joke's on us, isn't it? Chapter 27. Half a day later, the ship carrying Ye Cheng finally docked at Chenshin Island. He spent the next several hours cooped up in his cabin, too nervous even to step out. The moment the gangplank hit the dock, he and his 3 companions hurried ashore and secured rooms at a modest island inn. Although Chenshin Pavilion exercised authority over the entire isle, it wasn't populated solely by its disciples. Small farming villages and market towns dotted the coast, and ordinary families lived and worked here under the pavilion's protection. Remembering his father Guqian's counsel, Ye Cheng rose before dawn the next morning and made his way to the pavilion's grand mountain gate. He paused at the base of the stone steps and watched wave after wave of recruits arrive, their faces bright with anticipation. Not long ago, these young men and women had been ordinary students of the Half-King sect, a sprawling network whose numbers in the wider Wanyao Nanhai outstripped Chenshin pavilions by tens of thousands. Yet despite its smaller size, Chenshin Pavilion carried a reputation for rigorous training and high achievement that few could rival. Ye Cheng straightened his back, took a deep breath of the crisp mountain air, and joined the steady stream of hopeful newcomers. Today marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, and he was determined to prove himself worthy of Chenshin Pavilion's legacy. It wasn't so long ago that disciples of the Half-King sect could barely hold their heads up in public. Whenever they crossed paths with fellow cultivators, even those from comparably modest sects, they were openly snubbed with no fear of offending them. But everything changed the day Chenshin Pavilion was promoted to full King Force status. In all of Wanyao Bay, how many sects can claim that title? Its disciples never imagined they'd one day stand shoulder to shoulder with the region's elite. That single word, king, made all the difference. Suddenly, even the pavilion's outer disciples, once overlooked by their own families, found themselves treated with respect. Cold-hearted patriarchs now offered courteous bows. Former rivals arrived bearing lavish gifts, eager to make amends and secure good relations. This is the true power of a king force. Even its lowest-ranking members become untouchable. It's also why so many hopefuls line up to sit the Chenshin Pavilion's recruitment exam. For them, earning a spot under Chenshin's banner isn't just a milestone, it's a gateway to a brighter future. Ye Cheng stood at the foot of the mountain gate, restlessly pacing, and soon drew the curious stares of every Chenshin Pavilion disciple nearby. He didn't blame them. He was a striking young man, tall and lithe, with an air of determined urgency about him. He had come all this way to find his sister, Gu Chinger, who had just become a disciple of Chenshin Pavilion. But now, standing before the pavilion's gates, his confidence wavered. What if no one remembered her? What if they refused to help? His palms grew damp, and his heart thudded in his chest, but he forced himself to act. As a female disciple hurried past, likely off to submit her latest task, Ye Cheng stepped in front of her. "Excuse me," he said, voice a notch too loud. The girl skidded to a halt, annoyance flickering across her features as she recognized he wasn't one of the pavilion's own. "What do you want?" she snapped, arms folding. Ye Cheng swallowed. He took a breath and spoke as politely as he could manage. "I'm looking for my sister, Gu Chinger. She's a disciple here. Could you tell me if she's around?" He kept his gaze low and his shoulders slightly hunched, bracing for a brusque dismissal. Instead, the girl's impatience softened ever so slightly at the mention of Chinger's name. But before she could respond, a gong sounded inside the pavilion, and 2 senior disciples strode out to inspect the newcomer. Ye Cheng straightened at once, hoping their arrival might clear any misunderstanding. "I don't know anyone named Gu." "Wait, who are you talking about?" The young disciple snapped, glancing anxiously at her talisman scroll. She needed to return and submit her assignment immediately. Without realizing it, she took a step back, trying to slip away from the other girl. But something about her words made her pause. "Did you say your sister's name is Gu Chinger?" she asked, brow furrowing. "Do you know her? Would you mind passing along a message?" Just tell her that her sister is looking for her. Before the girl could refuse, Gu Xier fished a small pouch from the folds of her robe and pressed it into her hands. The sack clinked with the sound of spirit stones. This is only a token. Please accept it. The Gu clan wasn't among the great lineages, and yet for Gu Xier, even for her entire family, such an offering held real value. The disciple stared at the pouch, confusion warring with caution. Finally, she shook her head. Are you sure your sister's name is Gu Chinger? You aren't mixing up names. She hesitated, then asked, What's your name, by the way? My sister's name really is Gu Chinger, and I'm Gu Xier. The young woman's voice trembled just slightly. The disciple studied her for a long moment. It wasn't that she outright doubted her story. Any stranger could claim to be the sister of some powerful figure, but it was hard to believe on the spot. With a polite nod, she cupped the pouch in both hands and said quietly, All right, I'll see what I can do. Relief flickered across Gu Xier's face. She gave the other girl a grateful bow before disappearing into the lantern-lit corridor, clutching her robes close. The corridor fell silent again, save for the whispered rustle of silk and the faint crackle of spirit energy, an unspoken promise that this curious encounter might yet bear unexpected fruit. Gu Xier was undeniably beautiful, but her timid manner and simple robes betrayed no hint of noble birth. There was no way she could really be the sister of the Saint Lady. Hold on. A sudden realization struck the senior disciple. After all, the Saint Lady herself had once been an outer disciple before her promotion. Could it? It was possible. Gu Xier, could she be that very same sister? In an instant, the girl's impatience vanished. Her eyes lit up as she grasped Gu Xier's hand and beamed. Sister Xier, of course I know you. Come with me. I'll take you to the reception hall and personally introduce you to Her Highness the Saint Lady. Gu Xier was half led, half pulled along, her head spinning. Her senior sister's attitude had flipped overnight. Was this really the same girl? And was she truly leading her to the Saint Lady? Senior sister, you must be mistaken, Gu Xier protested softly, trying to slip her hand free. My sister is only an outer disciple of Chenxin Pavilion. She isn't a Saint Lady. An outer disciple? The senior repeated, brows knitting together in confusion. But I could have sworn. That's even more accurate. She hadn't been completely certain before, but now the female disciple could be sure. This Ye Cheng was the Saint Lady's brother. Ruier? As they rounded a corner, a voice rang out. A woman of about 30, her bearing unmistakably commanding, stepped forward. Ah, senior sister! The young disciple gave a startled cry. The elder woman, addressed as Master, frowned in displeasure. Didn't I tell you to report to me the moment you returned to the sect? Where have you been? And who is this you've brought with you? Isn't she a disciple of Chenxin Pavilion? Her lips tightening, the master's dissatisfaction deepened at the sight of Ye Cheng, an outsider, walking freely within sect grounds, especially when Ruier had failed to complete her debriefing. Sensing her elder's rising anger, Ruier hurriedly explained, Master, I did intend to come straight to you, but something unexpected happened. Though this young man isn't a disciple of Chenxin Pavilion, he is the brother of Her Highness the Saint, Ye Cheng declared. The stern expression on the female elder's face faded. She stepped closer, eyeing him in astonishment. You're the brother of Her Highness the Saint. Chenxin Pavilion hadn't appointed a saint, son or daughter, for many years. While the junior disciples might not understand why the elders finally named one, the senior members knew full well. The saint's mysterious brother was the true power behind the pavilion's rise. It was he who had transformed Chenxin Pavilion from a middling, half-king force into a full-fledged, king-level sect. Even though Gu Chinger held only the title of saint, her rank exceeded that of every elder, and even the pavilion master treated her with the utmost deference. In strict hierarchy, the saint herself outranked the pavilion master, simply because she was sister to that formidable figure. Now, studying Ye Cheng's features, the elder saw the resemblance between brother and sister. A smile finally touched her lips, and her stern posture relaxed at once. That's settled. Go and inform Her Highness the Saint's party. I will receive her sister myself. Yes, master. Inside the reception hall, Gu Xier sat in the honored guest's seat, her heart fluttering with nerves. Even now, she could hardly believe this was really happening. What if she'd recognized the wrong person? Her anxiety evaporated the instant she caught sight of the newcomer at the sect's gate. Ye Cheng, no, her sister, stepped into view, and Xier's mouth fell open in astonishment. Relief and disbelief lit up her eyes. The female elder standing beside Xier hurried to her feet. "Your Highness the Saint! Sister!" Xier called, leaping up. "Xiao Xier!" Chinger's voice trembled with emotion. The two sisters rushed into each other's arms, embracing tightly. Around them, Ruier and the other disciples bowed respectfully and quietly fell back, giving the reunited siblings a moment to themselves. Chapter 28. Xier, what are you doing here? Are you traveling alone? Where's Dad? Ye Cheng released his younger sister's hand and frowned. Before he went into seclusion, their father had told him, if he missed home too much, he didn't have to wait. He could return to Wangqin Island on his own. Ye Cheng had insisted on seeing his seclusion through, promising to bring his sister home himself. He certainly hadn't expected Xier to arrive without him. Xier shook her head. I didn't come by myself. Third Elder came with me. We've been summoned to the Chenxin Pavilion's recruitment ceremony. Recruitment ceremony? Ye Cheng's brows shot up. Why would his own sister need to take a test? He stepped closer, voice low with bewilderment. But Xier, how did you become a saint of Chenxin Pavilion? Didn't you write home 6 months ago saying you were only aiming for an inner sect position? At the word saint, Xier's eyes widened. Outer sect, inner sect, core disciples, true teaching, and above them all, the title of Saint Maiden. Those 6 letters carried unimaginable weight. Xier bit her lip, her eager confidence faltering for the first time. What had happened to his little sister? Why had she leapt so many ranks in just half a year? Silence hung between them as Ye Cheng studied Xier's face. The path she'd chosen and the power she now wielded promised to change everything. What made you leap from an outer disciple all the way to Saint Maiden? Xier stared at her sister, bewildered. Ye Cheng smiled gently. It's a long story. I'll start from the beginning. She took a deep breath and told Xier how she'd met Ye Cheng and everything that had happened in the days they spent together. By the time she finished, Xier's mind was reeling. Ye Cheng, just 20 years old and already a king realm cultivator. Not only did he single-handedly forge a king-level spiritual artifact, he also helped the master of Chenxin Pavilion break through into the king realm. Xier could hardly believe it. A brother of their own blood, and yet so astonishingly powerful? Her curiosity burned hotter than ever. She had to see this Ye Cheng for herself. Was he a prodigy of unmatched talent, or something even more extraordinary? A distant bell tolled, pulling Xier from her reverie. The recruitment ceremony is about to begin, Chinger said. Xier, hurry back and join the Third Elder. As for your assessment, don't worry. I'll speak with the examiner myself. You'll enter Chenxin Pavilion untested, on true merit alone. Over the past few days, Chinger had changed in countless ways, each transformation at Ye Cheng's encouragement. Ever since their paths crossed, he had guided her, inspired her, and opened a doorway to a realm she'd never dreamed possible. Now, as the bell tolled again, Xier knew her own destiny was about to shift forever. You're now a saint of Chenxin Pavilion, elder sister reminded me gently. Your rank even surpasses that of the pavilion master. A saint must carry himself with dignity, no more bowing your head and swallowing your pride. Ye Cheng, you've come a long way since then. Her words thrilled me. So there's no need for the entrance assessment? I asked, my pulse quickening. I can receive the true teachings the moment I step inside? I thought back to the voyage, how I'd envied Kuyong for sidestepping the trial and entering the pavilion directly. Now I wouldn't have to envy him any longer, especially since my own cultivation had already outstripped his. Once I crossed that threshold, the legendary true teachings would be mine. I knew exactly what those teachings represented, the pavilion's core doctrines, reserved only for its most esteemed disciples, capable of propelling one's martial progress by leaps and bounds. Sister, I said with a broad grin, you're not teasing me, are you? I'll head straight for the assessment elder, before the enrollment ceremony begins. Go on then, she replied, her smile warm. Heart racing, I darted from Chenxin Pavilion and sprinted back to the inn. Breathless, I burst into the common room where Third Elder and the other young members of the Gu family were gathered. Their eyes went wide as I relayed the news. For a moment, no one spoke, then disbelief turned into excited chatter. I laughed and clasped Third Elder's shoulder. Believe it, everyone. I'm truly a saint now, and the true teachings await. They only believed it when they saw the Chenxin Pavilion Elder, the one Ye Cheng had assigned to return with his sister, Xianxia, and keep her safe. Meanwhile, before the recruitment ceremony began, Kui Yong sought out his family's Taishang, who also served as an elder in Chenxin Pavilion. Younger, the Taishang began with a smile, I hear you've broken through to the true spirit realm. Well done, that greatly improves your odds of passing the assessment. Kui Yong's brow furrowed in confusion. Passing the assessment? Taishang, I don't need to take any test, do I? The elder stroked his long beard thoughtfully. You're right. It used to be that you could waltz right in on a family recommendation. But just yesterday, the pavilion master decreed that no elder or official may show favoritism, and no one may slip into Chenxin Pavilion through the back door. Even I can't pull any strings now. Kui Taishang cleared his throat and spoke in a measured tone. Young Master Kui, your admission to the Chenxin Pavilion now hinges entirely on your own performance. Kui Yong's face fell. How could this be? He had paraded through the courtyard, boasting that he would bypass the assessment, and everyone in his circle believed him. Yet here he stood, suddenly bound to take the same test as everyone else. Younger, Kui Taishang continued, his voice softening, you've already broken through to the true spirit tier. Your chances of passing the assessment are excellent. Don't lose heart. I believe you can do it. This wasn't a suggestion, but the pavilion master's decree, and Kui Taishang was powerless to change it. Kui Yong's cheeks burned with humiliation. No, it was more than that. He had talked up his effortless entry so loudly that if his peers learned he still had to sit the exam, his reputation would be in ruins. Taishang? He blurted, his pride fighting back. Surely there must be another way. Kui Taishang gave him a sympathetic shake of the head. I'm sorry, there really isn't. Kui Yong spun on his heel and stalked away, his shoulders tense with indignation. At the stroke of noon, the Chenxin Pavilion's recruitment ceremony officially began, marking the moment when every hopeful, even a proud young master like Kui Yong, would have to prove themselves on equal footing. The broad square at the foot of the mountain gate swirled with activity as gifted disciples streamed in from the Xianxia Islands and beyond. Banners snapped in the breeze, and clusters of hopefuls chattered excitedly. After all, today's assessment test offered a direct path into the inner sect, or even the chance to become an elder's personal disciple. Ye Cheng stood among his family, his pulse quickening at the sight. This was the opportunity they'd all trained for. Isn't that Master Kui Yong over there? One of the Gu siblings murmured, nodding toward a solitary figure on the fringe of the crowd. Kui Yong surveyed the gathering with a narrowed gaze. A handful of attendants lingered by his side, but their earlier zeal had dissipated now that they'd learned he, too, must sit for the test. The privilege of skipping the trials and entering Chenxin Pavilion straight away was gone, an ignoble blow to someone of his standing. Not long ago, everyone envied his clan's Taishang ranking. These days, it simply entitled him to the rank of elder within Chenxin Pavilion, nothing more. As whispers spread of fresh talents ready to claim their place, it was Kui Yong's turn to watch others with envy in his eyes. Even if Ye Cheng managed to enter Chenxin Pavilion without sitting for the exam, he'd still only qualify as an outer, or at best an inner disciple. Only after that would he be allowed to be agent the true teachings. Even now, many of the gathered hopefuls could hardly believe their luck. At that moment, Kui Yong finally registered the presence of the Gu family, but he scarcely paused. He'd planned to win Gu Xier's favor once they reached the island. He'd been genuinely smitten, but learning that he too had to pass the assessment shattered his romantic ambitions. Now, all he could think about was the exam ahead. According to Elder Taishang, should he pass, the elder would personally accept him as a disciple and grant him inner disciple status. It's 1:45, a clear voice rang out over the crowd. Elder Taishang will now announce the assessment rules. Please be silent. A great bell tolled through the mountain gate of Chenxin Pavilion. At its final reverberation, Elder Taishang stepped forward. Instantly, the assembled cultivators fell silent. In charge of the examination stood the pavilion's second elder, a ninth-level expert of the Calamity Realm, whose authority alone could quell even the noisiest of crowds. At that moment, every eye in the hall turned to the second elder, waiting for his next move. He cleared his throat and raised a hand for silence. Before we begin the assessments, I have an announcement to make. He paused, letting the tension build. I will now call out several names. Those whose names are read aloud need not participate in the standard 3-round trials. They may advance directly. With that, he unfurled a scroll and began to read. Gu Xie, Gu Yang, Gu Zichu, Gu Lingyue. At each name, the named disciples stepped forward, relief and pride shining on their faces as they joined the select few granted an automatic pass. Chapter 29. A sudden commotion broke the hush over the training square as word spread that Gu Xie and his companions had been excused from the initial trials and granted direct entry into the Chenxin Pavilion. Envious eyes followed them everywhere, but no one dared voice an objection. The second elder, who oversaw the assessment tests, offered no explanation, and the other candidates, though simmering with frustration, kept silent. Everyone there understood that true fairness was rare in their world. Indeed, the pavilion masters supporting Gu Xie all shared the surname Gu, a detail too striking to be coincidental. Whispers rippled through the crowd as they exchanged guarded theories about the family's influence. Yet, despite their resentment, no one stepped forward to protest. When the murmur finally died down, the second elder raised his hand and began outlining the rules for the next 3 rounds of testing. As he spoke, Kuyong's eyes narrowed in disbelief. He stared at Gu Xie's triumphant air and then shifted his gaze to Kui Taishang, silently demanding an explanation. Taishang had sworn up and down that there would be no favoritism, no backdoor deals. So how had Gu Xie and his group bypassed the entire first stage of trials? The question hung in the air, heavy with tension. The same shock rippled through the onlookers, especially the handful of Gu family followers who'd mocked Gu Xie for being ungrateful. They'd laughed, confident that Kuyong would never even show up for the assessment. After all, if he'd failed, he'd be expelled just like anyone else. Yet there he was, standing firm. And those who had ridiculed him. Kui Taishang, standing beside his descendant, grew uncomfortably aware of their discomfiture. Clearing his throat, he offered hastily, "Those few are exceptions." "Why?" Kuyong's voice snapped, his fists clenching at his sides. Taishang's gaze turned frosty. "Because their sister is the reigning saint of Chenxin Pavilion. Happy now? If you had a saint for a sister, you'd be spared too," Kuyong shot back. The Grandmaster's patience thinned. How dare this young man challenge him? "Saintess," he echoed, eyebrows arched. Kuyong, Changping, and the others all turned to the Grandmaster in unison, eyes blazing with disbelief. "Grandmaster, is that true?" Kui Taishang's mood darkened as he folded his arms. "Do you honestly think they can be exempted from the assessment and still enter the Chenxin Pavilion?" That's precisely the order the pavilion master gave. Kuyong glanced sharply at Changping. In a low voice he asked, "Weren't you the one who insisted Gu Chinger was nothing more than an outer disciple of the Chenxin Pavilion? What's going on here?" Changping opened his mouth, then shut it again. He had spoken those words with absolute conviction. Everyone on Wangqin Island knew the head of the Gu family had paid a tremendous price just to secure that single outer disciple spot for his daughter. How could she suddenly have been elevated to saintess of the Chenxin Pavilion? The very notion seemed impossible. Just then, a figure in flowing white robes emerged from the pavilion's inner courtyard. Each step he took stirred the air like gathering thunder. Kui Taishang's eyes widened. Kuyong fell silent. It was Ye Cheng, once known as Gu Changqing, returning from his trial. Tales already swirled around him. He had broken through to the 4th level of the Tribulation Realm. Word of Ye Cheng's miraculous advancement raced through the island that day. His strength had grown faster than anyone dared imagine, leaving behind questions that even the Pavilion Master's decree couldn't fully answer. Considering Ye Cheng's unique gifts, the Chaos Sword body, an Emperor-level heart method, and the cache of ancient pill formulas gleaned from the Dan Emperor Heart Sutra, it's no wonder his cultivation leapt ahead by bounds. During this latest secluded retreat, he not only shattered the mirror ceiling formation that had long constrained him, but also refined every spirit herb he'd acquired at Thadling, auction into potent elixirs. At first, he crafted only 3 of the famed 3-yuan barrier breaker pills, the only medicine capable of pushing a cultivator into the king realm. Baiheng and Chenyun each consumed 1, leaving a solitary pill in reserve. By the time his retreat concluded, however, Ye Cheng had produced 3 more barrier breakers. In addition, his alchemical furnaces yielded 300 chi-boosting pills, 300 pure origin pills, and 50 tribulation pills. That stockpile alone was enough to sustain both him and his clansmen through many months of training, and should they ever require more spirit herbs, the Chenshin Pavilion stood ready to procure them. Next stop home, Ye Cheng told himself. Emerging from seclusion, he and Gu Qinger journeyed to the Gu family estate on Wangqin Island. There, he presented Patriarch Gu Qian with his perfected version of the Taishuan heart method and left behind a generous supply of elixirs for the family's cultivators. With his duties fulfilled, Ye Cheng set off toward home. It had been some time since Ye Cheng emerged from seclusion, and already he found himself missing Zhang Lianxin and their unborn twins. Turning back to Gu Qinger and Xie, his 2 loyal disciples, he offered one last encouragement. Qinger, train hard and restore our Gu family's former glory. I can't do it alone. And by the time we meet again, he continued, I expect you both to have broken through to the Calamity Realm. Tears welled in Gu Qinger's eyes. During their months together, she'd grown strangely dependent on him. Brother Ye Cheng, I really can't bear to see you go. Ye Cheng reached out to smooth her hair. It's not like we'll never meet again. You're now the saint of a king-level sect. There's no point in crying. He offered her a reassuring smile. Now, let's go. With that, Ye Cheng condensed his aura into a brilliant shaft of light and shot across the sky above the Langxi Islands, disappearing from view. As for Baiheng, Ye Cheng had foreseen his own withdrawal into deeper seclusion and had already instructed Baiheng to return to the Hankengu household. Baiheng's presence was no longer required at Ye Cheng's side, and it was best for him to rejoin the family without delay. Before departing, Ye Cheng also entrusted the master of Chenshin Pavilion with one final task, to uncover any news of the mysterious 4th-level weapon refiner. 4th-level weapon refiners are as formidable as king-level cultivators, and almost unheard of. In the entire Wanyao Nanhai, none have been documented. Ye Cheng had already dispatched the Chenshin Pavilion to scour the other seas for any leads. Between the 2 3rd-level spiritual swords he'd acquired at auction and the 2 2nd-level blades he'd long possessed, he now commanded 4 swords, the exact number required to unleash the Zuxian sword formation. And yet, even 3rd-level weapons rarely surfaced. A 4th-level king-grade armament was a treasure beyond imagining, destined to vanish from the Haiyue auction for months on end. As Ye Cheng readied his return to the Han Qin Empire, he sent Baiheng ahead to the family estate. By the time he arrived in Jianglin City, Baiheng was already at the Gu residence, preparing the household for his lord's return. Inside the Gu compound, Patriarch Gu Yuan, head of the family and a renowned martial master, was guiding the younger generation through a series of basic forms. Each student moved with earnest concentration under his watchful eye. Nearby, Zhang Lianxin stood quietly, one hand cradling her gently rounding belly. Her expression was soft, pride and anticipation mingling in her dark, gentle eyes as she observed the training. Ye Cheng took it all in, a small smile touching his lips. Soon, he thought, everything would change. Since discovering she was expecting, Zhang Lianxin's own cultivation had all but stalled. With more free time on her hands, she immersed herself in mentoring the Gu family's younger disciples, guiding their movements and refining their techniques. Having fully embraced her place among the Gu clan, the fairy-like beauty inspired renewed discipline in every student under her watch. One afternoon, Lianxin paused mid-lesson, her hands resting protectively on her rounded belly as she gazed toward the distant skyline. "Ye Cheng," she murmured, "why haven't you come back yet? I miss you so much." A sudden crackle of energy cut through the still air. In the blink of an eye, a searing beam of light tore across the heavens and hovered above the Gu estate. Instantly, every cultivator, from the youngest trainee to senior instructors, stopped their drills and stared in awe. "What is that?" one disciple whispered. Airwalking technique. No, that aura. He's at least Grand King level. Another breathed, voice trembling. Zhang Lianxin's heart leapt. Beside her, Gu Yuan's eyes widened with astonishment. As the brilliant column of light dissipated, it revealed an elderly man clad in simple white robes, his presence calm yet undeniably powerful. For a long moment, the assembly stood in stunned silence, all eyes fixed on the newcomer who had just appeared above the Gu family's ancestral grounds. An oppressive aura pulsed through the Gu family courtyard the moment the white-robed figure arrived, an unmistakable signature of a king-level cultivator. Instantly, the clan's senior elders poured out of their chambers, hearts pounding, eyes fixed on the newcomer hovering overhead. A king-class expert had appeared unannounced in Little Jianglan City, and every mind raced. Friend or foe? If an enemy. Ye Cheng's face went ashen. As a sixth-stage Calamity Realm cultivator, he was currently the clan's strongest, yet even someone half a step from the king realm would be like an ant before a true king-level powerhouse, easily crushed. Beside him, Zhang Lianxin pressed a hand to her belly, worry etching her features. She didn't fear death herself, but what about the child she carried? Silence fell over the assembled elders as the white-robed man stilled his breath, deliberately dispelling the thunderous aura that had announced his arrival. Then, in just 3 measured steps, he descended and approached Zhang Lianxin, his eyes gentle but unreadable. Under the awestruck gazes of everyone present, Bai Heng dropped to one knee before Zhang Lianxin. The entire Gu household, including Zhang Lianxin herself, stood speechless. This was no ordinary underling, but a bona fide king realm expert, and when the elderly man in the white robe spoke, the onlookers' confusion only deepened. I, Bai Heng, humbly pay my respects to the mistress. Chapter 30. Senior, what did you call me? Zhang Lianxin froze. Though she'd once been the most esteemed elder of the Jiang clan, she was utterly thrown by that unexpected form of address. Bai Heng's face turned crimson. Madam, please, just call me Bai Heng. Senior is far too formal, and I'd be mortified. If Master hears about this, he'll never let me hear the end of it. Even though Zhang Lianxin's cultivation hovered at only the 2nd level of the Calamity Realm, Bai Heng dared not remain overly deferential in her presence. Yet beneath his embarrassment, a spark of astonishment flickered. From the subtle ripples in her aura, he could tell she was no ordinary cultivator. Spirit body, spirit bone? Could she be one of those legendary beings capable one day of challenging even an emperor? He shook himself, pushing the thought aside. What was he imagining? His master was a force beyond reckoning. His wife couldn't possibly be so extraordinary, and yet a spirit bone and spirit body could indeed hold such potential. Bai Heng's eyes flicked over to the confused members of the Gu family and to Ye Cheng, who stared back in wide-eyed amazement. Then he realized, with a sheepish smile, that he hadn't even introduced himself. My apologies, he said, bowing slightly. I am Bai Heng, the 4th disciple of the Azure Heaven sect. It is an honor to meet you all. Bai Heng straightened and said, My master is Ye Cheng. Right now, he's in retreat in the Wanyao Southern Sea. Before he left, he instructed me to return to the Gu household early and take charge in his stead. Ye Cheng is your master? Gu Yuan repeated, brow furrowing in disbelief. Your husband is our master? Zhang Lianxin exclaimed at the same time. Both of them stared at Bai Heng, stunned. So Qing'er really was their mistress. But how could she command a king-level powerhouse as her servant? Zhang Lianxin had always known her husband was no ordinary cultivator, but this? A king-level cultivator ranks alongside a clan elder, a supreme existence, and yet here he was, merely serving Ye Cheng. Sensing their lingering doubt, Bai Heng carefully withdrew a small jade talisman from his sleeve. This is my master's voice talisman, he explained, pressing it lightly. Instantly, Ye Cheng's calm, resonant voice filled the hall. Bai Heng, report on the family's situation. At once, all skepticism vanished. If Ye Cheng, a king-level powerhouse, had harbored ill intent toward the Gu clan, he wouldn't have bothered with deception or servants. Hearing his genuine voice put every question to rest. Even if every member of the Gu family joined forces, they wouldn't stand a chance against a half-king, let alone a true king. There was no clear motive, no reason behind the attack. A week later, Ye Cheng finally returned to Jianglan City. The moment he stepped through the gate, Zhang Lianxin, tears glistening in her dark eyes, dropped to her knees, and then launched herself into his arms. Ye Cheng, you're back. He lifted her gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I couldn't stay away. Behind her, his father Gu Yuan and elder Bai Heng hurried forward to greet him. After a round of warm welcomes and respectful bows, Gu Yecheng asked his father to join him in private. Once they were alone in Yecheng's study, he carefully opened a lacquered box and withdrew 3 kinds of pills. These are qi-boosting pills and yuan-solidifying pills, both Danwen grade, he explained, handing them to Gu Yuan. And this, he lifted a single iridescent pill, is a tribulation crossing pill. Take it before your next breakthrough. His father's eyes widened in surprise. You've made these yourself? Ye Cheng nodded. I've refined them with ingredients from my journeys. They'll strengthen your foundation and protect you during a tribulation. There's something else. He produced a rolled parchment bound with red silk. This is the revised Gu family Taishuan mental method, my own improvements on our ancestral technique. It's now at the imperial rank. I want every clan member to learn it. Gu Yuan unrolled the scroll, scanning the elegant characters. This could elevate the entire family's cultivation. It's extraordinary. Indeed, Ye Cheng said, lowering his voice. But when you teach it, be sure no outsiders learn of its existence. The less the outside world knows, the safer the Gu clan will be. His father rolled up the manual and looked at the array of pills. So many qi-boosting pills. Are you certain we need this many? Ye Cheng smiled with quiet confidence. With the threats facing us, I'd say it's just enough. Outside, Zhang Lianxin's soft footsteps approached. Father and son exchanged a knowing look. No matter what perils lay ahead, the Gu family was about to take a decisive step toward greater strength. Gu Yecheng tilted his head, considering the pills laid out before him. You spoke of a yuan-solidifying elixir, an imperial-level martial arts? Gu Yuan's eyes brightened, a trace of disbelief on his face. He licked his lips, still a little stunned. I know, Ye Cheng, you've grown far stronger than I ever was. You really should consider becoming the next head of the Gu family. For years, Gu Yuan had ruled the clan with an even hand, but with his son's prowess now eclipsing his own, he saw the perfect opportunity to pass on the mantle. Under Gu Yecheng's leadership, the family would surely rise to new heights. Then Gu Yuan's expression shifted to one of gentle resignation. He shook his head. Actually, I've lost all interest in the post. I won't be staying here much longer. Anyway, the family's affairs are yours to manage from now on. Gu Yecheng's eyes narrowed in surprise, but he forced a small smile. Father, I appreciate it, but I'd rather run my incense shop in peace than bear the weight of family politics. Gu Yuan frowned. But Ye Cheng, you're the strongest martial artist in our clan. Since when does the strongest fighter automatically become clan leader? Gu Yecheng asked, amusement flickering in his eyes. Is Zhang Tianwang the chief of the Zhang family? Not that I've heard. He paused, then added earnestly, and don't worry about your cultivation, father. Once you've had time to refine more elixirs, your strength will soar again. Who knows, you might one day outshine me. A proud but relieved smile spread across Gu Yuan's face. As father and son stood together in the late afternoon light, the future of the Gu family felt brighter than ever. Gu Yecheng stood in the center of the Gu family's grand hall, the light from the jade lanterns glinting off his calm expression. In his palm, he held a small jade vial, inside which floated several iridescent pills. He met his father's gaze steadily. As head of such a distinguished clan, there's no place for weakness, Gu Yecheng said. Don't worry about saving these elixirs. If you run out, I have plenty more stored away. Gu Yuan raised an eyebrow. You really think these pills can help me survive the King Realm Thunder Tribulation? His tone was skeptical, but a flicker of hope shone in his eyes. Absolutely, Gu Yecheng replied with a confident smile. Once your cultivation reaches the peak of the Calamity Realm, I'll provide you with another formula. That concoction will guarantee you pass the King Realm Tribulation unscathed. Gu Yuan shook his head in disbelief. Easily pass the tribulation? Ye Cheng, you must be joking. There's no such elixir in all the cultivation world. Perhaps, Gu Yecheng said, but consider Bai Heng. Only a few months ago, he'd barely achieved half-king perfection. Without my assistance, he would never have broken into the King Realm in this lifetime. If I could guide him to that breakthrough, then helping you will be even simpler. His father's face blanched. You mean Bai Heng's ascension was your doing? Of course. Ye Cheng's smile widened just a fraction. Otherwise, why would Bai Heng, now an honored guest elder of our clan, willingly acknowledge me as his master? Gu Yuan stared at his son, speechless. The implications were staggering. Before Ye Cheng turned to leave, he paused at the doorway and glanced back. One more thing, father, he said softly. Keep this matter strictly between us for now. With that, he slipped out of the hall, leaving Gu Yuan to absorb the revelation of his son's hidden power. For the Gu family's current stage, keeping a low profile is the wisest course, Ye Cheng said evenly. Now isn't the time for grandstanding. We'll grow steadily, and when our strength reaches its peak, we'll show the world exactly what the Gu clan can do. That day isn't far off. He departed, but his words echoed in Gu Yuan's mind. Gazing after his retreating figure, Gu Yuan exhaled softly. Ye Cheng, you've truly come into your own, he murmured. Night draped the estate in shadow. After long days apart, Ye Cheng and Zhang Lianxin finally found each other in the privacy of their chamber. Only when the door was firmly closed did they allow themselves a moment of closeness. But when dawn's first light filtered through the latticework, Ye Cheng's concern outweighed his relief. He gently probed her pulse and frowned. Shiner, you're far weaker than I expected. Zhang Lianxin lay paler than porcelain, her breath shallow. She wasn't wounded, yet her spiritual power had ebbed, her blood thin and spent. This made no sense. Pregnant with the sacred bones, her vitality should have been astounding, surpassing even the most hardened physical cultivators. How could she be so depleted? Chapter 7. The Unseen Drain. Ye Cheng's brow creased as he probed the currents of his own spiritual energy. He tightened his robes and glanced across the chamber at his wife. Shiner, you've been acting strange lately. Tell me honestly, how are you feeling? Zhang Lianxin pressed a hand to her temple, her expression weary. I've felt constantly exhausted these past few days, even though I barely move from one room to another. And at night, I'm so sleepy, it's as if I spent the entire night in, well, strenuous activity. Ye Cheng suppressed an awkward cough. He'd been experiencing something similar. My energy's been draining too, he admitted. I mentioned it to my father. He gave me some restorative pills. They helped a bit, but the problem keeps coming back. He withdrew the subtle strands of his consciousness from her aura and met her concerned gaze. I think I know what's happening, he said softly. Your spiritual power isn't vanishing into thin air, it's being absorbed. Lianxin's eyes widened. Absorbed? By whom? Not an intruder or a cursed artifact, Ye Cheng replied. He paused, choosing his words carefully. It's our unborn child. A hush fell between them. Lianxin sank onto the cushioned bench beside him, her hand instinctively resting on her rounded belly. Our baby is drawing all our energy? Ye Cheng nodded. Yes, and I suspect it's not just a simple pregnancy appetite. I've felt subtle ripples, like someone exceptionally powerful is siphoning our spiritual reserves. Lianxin swallowed. But our child is just an infant. How could it do that? He intertwined his fingers with hers, determination shining in his eyes. I've sensed something extraordinary about them, especially our daughter. She's a genius in the making. If she's already drawing power at this stage, imagine what she'll be capable of once she's born. Lianxin's gaze softened with a mix of awe and apprehension. What do we do now? We'll guide her, Ye Cheng vowed, lifting her hand to his lips. We'll learn to regulate her growth and protect her from unintended harm. Together, we'll ensure that her incredible gift doesn't turn into a curse. Outside, a gentle breeze rustled the curtains. Inside, husband and wife exchanged a quiet resolve, bracing themselves for the remarkable and daunting journey ahead. The purple sky eclipse Thunderbody, legendary among the 9th grade gold divine Physiques, was said to be the ultimate expression of heavenly power. Yet Ye Cheng never imagined that his unborn twins had already begun tapping into their mother's spiritual energy to cultivate, even before drawing their fur. Spreth. Chapter 31. As the twins' due date drew near, Zhang Lianxin's appetite grew almost comically insatiable. Each day she consumed mountains of food, and Ye Cheng was hard-pressed to keep her nourished. Thankfully, during his recent sojourn abroad, he had perfected a stockpile of replenishing pills, each one brimming with pure spiritual energy. Without them, Lianxin might well have been drained dry by their unborn children. Ye Cheng found himself secretly delighted. Had you ever seen a child of 7 or 8 outpace the prodigies who dominated the spirit list? Soon enough, he thought, we shall. In anticipation, he whisked Zhang Lianxin away from the bustle of Zhonglin City during the final month of her pregnancy. Deep in a remote forest clearing, he erected a hidden formation designed to stabilize the immense energies their children would unleash the moment they arrived. There, he built a sturdy wooden cabin and summoned the tribe's most skilled midwife to oversee the birth. Everything was in place: protection from prying eyes, reserves of healing herbs, and potent talismans to shield mother and infants alike. On the morning the twins decided to enter the world, the sky itself seemed to revolt. One moment, sunlight danced across the treetops. The next, the forest was plunged into an unnatural twilight. The air crackled with unspoken power, ominous, electric, and Ye Cheng knew the moment of destiny had arrived. A scarlet beam of light suddenly stabbed down from the sky, striking the little wooden cottage where Zhang Lianxin and Ye Cheng lay. To their astonishment, it left no scorch mark, no splintered wood, nothing. Before they could even exhale, a jagged bolt of lightning rent the heavens, and above the drifting clouds a colossal phantom materialized. Towering 10,000 feet high, it bore the bearing of a goddess, solemn, majestic, utterly regal. All who gazed upon it were seized by reverence, their hearts aching to bow. Husband, Zhang Lianxin's voice trembled as she tightened her grip on Ye Cheng's hand. In her mind, they had retreated here simply for peace and privacy after her difficult childbirth. Now faced with this cosmic upheaval, she realized how naive that hope had been. The clan's midwife, hired to oversee the delivery, was the first to falter. Her eyes glazed over, her legs buckled, and she collapsed, forehead pressed to the floor in worship. Every instinct she had abandoned her as she offered silent adoration to the phantom empress looming overhead. Ye Cheng alone remained unshaken. Years of cultivating the chaos sword body had rendered him impervious to such spiritual coercion. He simply tightened his grip on Zhang Lianxin's hand, his eyes scanning the sky for answers. Thankfully, the impossible display did not endure. As the last tendrils of incense smoke curled upward from the midwife's burner, the phantom slowly dissolved, dissipating like a dream, and the storm clouds parted, leaving the sky clear once more. Silence reclaimed the air, broken only by Zhang Lianxin's soft, shaky exhale. Though the vision had vanished, its implications would not soon be forgotten. Around them, the world felt irrevocably changed. And as dawn's first light touched the little cottage, husband and wife knew their lives would never be the same again. The disturbing ripples in heaven and earth suddenly faded, and the sky cleared as if nothing had happened. At that moment, Zhang Lianxin's labor pains intensified. She gripped the edge of the bed, face pale, and gasped, "It's time." The midwife, her hands already slick with sweat, nodded sharply. There was no time to dwell on the earlier calamity. She guided Zhang Lianxin through each contraction, offering breath and encouragement. Minutes later, 2 newborn cries split the air. Zhang Lianxin collapsed back, spent and trembling, tears of relief sliding down her cheeks. Ye Cheng sprang to her side, gently lifting her hand. "You've done amazingly well, Lianxin," he said, voice thick with emotion. She managed a weary smile. "It wasn't so bad. I'm just so happy." He knelt to arrange the twins, still wailing at her side. Slowly, he peeled back their swaddling cloths, revealing tiny chests that pulsed with a faint, otherworldly glow. Ye Cheng's breath caught. "First level of true spirit, and 3rd level of true spirit," he murmured in disbelief. Zhang Lianxin's eyes widened. "They're true spirit warriors from birth?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't reach true spirit until I was 10. What have we brought into the world?" The 2 infants, scarcely larger than a parent's hand, continued to cry in protest, their auras flickering like newborn stars. Pride and astonishment warred on Ye Cheng's face as he exchanged a look with Zhang Lianxin. "Our children," he said softly, "they truly are extraordinary." Zhang Lianxin reached out to cradle one of them, her earlier pain forgotten. Outside, the sky had returned to its calm, and beneath its clear expanse, the young family sat astonished by the miracle they had just greeted. Ye Cheng's situation was, if anything, even more exasperating than everyone else's. He hadn't broken through to the true spirit realm until he was almost grown, an embarrassing delay by any cultivation standard. Comparisons made his cheeks burn with shame. Thankfully, the only ones noticing his shortcoming were his own family. Otherwise, the entire world might have been gossiping about the late bloomer, disciple of the Gu clan. Even Ye Cheng himself found cause to blush, for his unborn twin sons had already begun their training in the womb. All those pills Zhang Lianxin had been taking, supplementing her qi for the children, were clearly working overtime. It was a good thing Ye Cheng had inherited the Red Fate Chao's sword body from his father. Otherwise, the two little prodigies might have grown so strong they'd shoved him straight off the cultivation beach. After a few days of rest in the simple wooden pavilion by the river, Ye Cheng and Zhang Lianxin returned to the Gu family estate. As soon as his father, Gu Yuan, caught sight of the twins, swaddled in Zhang Lianxin's arms, his eyes lit up brighter than lanterns at Spring Festival. He paced the grand hall of the mansion, cradling one child in each arm, murmuring proud remarks under his breath. Ye Cheng hadn't mentioned anything about the bizarre manifestation of natural energy he'd just experienced. Only his father knew. The fewer people aware of it, the better. After all, a genius capable of altering the flow of heaven and earth would surely draw the attention of even Emperor Tianzun. For now, that secret would remain safely locked away within the Gu family's walls. If it were just an ordinary disciple, there'd be no harm, but if someone with malicious intent learned of it, I'd be powerless to stop them at my current level. Better to keep this under wraps. With that in mind, Ye Cheng quietly erased the midwife's memory of the birth. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. Ye Cheng was now 19, and his twin sons, Gu Yunxi and Gu Qingchen, had just turned 2. Yet their bodies had developed so rapidly that they already looked more like 4 or 5-year-olds. Over those 2 years, Ye Cheng devoted himself almost entirely to cultivation. Whenever he wasn't training, he was with his wife, Zhang Lianxin, and their boys, teaching them the basics of spirit manipulation and proper etiquette. His progress in cultivation was nothing short of astonishing. When he left off 2 years ago, he was at the lower 4th level of the Tribulation realm. Today, he stood firmly in the mid-stage of the Mysterious King. Such a meteoric rise was nearly unheard of. Every step upward became exponentially more difficult as one advanced. But Ye Cheng's determination and talent had carried him forward without faltering. In the Tribulation realm, most cultivators spend a year, or often several, just to advance a single stage. Yet in barely 2 years, Ye Cheng not only shattered the King Realm barrier, but has fully mastered the mid-stage of the Mysterious King Realm. He stands now only 1 breath away from its lull to stage, and that's just his realm level. On the equipment front, Ye Cheng may not yet have secured a 4th-level weapon refiner, but he has already amassed 4 3rd-level spirit swords. Their combined might has pushed his Zhuxian sword formation to new heights. Meanwhile, his study of the Taishuan Sutra has progressed to its 2nd chapter, granting him an astonishing rate of spirit power absorption. Such rapid advancement puts even the famed spirit champions to shame. Take Zhang Lianxin, for example. Blessed with the holy bone, she might seem destined to surpass all others, yet she cannot keep pace with Ye Cheng. In the same 2-year span, she climbed from the 3rd level of the Calamity Realm to the threshold of the Half-King Realm. A remarkable feat in its own right, but still overshadowed by Ye Cheng's explosive growth. Ironically, it was Ye Cheng himself who bestowed upon her the 1st chapter of the Taishuan Sutra, kick-starting her own meteoric rise. Ye Cheng always maintained a respectful reserve around ordinary clansmen, but with his closest relatives, his wife Zhang Lianxin, his father Gu Yuan, and their 2 children, he made no such pretense. To them, he freely bestowed the genuine imperial-grade cultivation method, the Taishuan Sutra. His daughter, Gu Yunxi, has already reached the 6th level of the Calamity Realm, nearly matching her mother's prowess. With a golden 9th-grade divine body, her talent is nothing short of miraculous. His son, Gu Qingchen, currently stands at the 1st level of the Calamity Realm. When they were first born, the gap between them was minimal, one at the 3rd level of true spirit, the other at the 1st. But as they've grown, Yunxi's exceptional aptitude has pulled far ahead. That isn't to say Qingchen lacks talent. He was born with an orange fate, a sign of a future heavenly master, but his sister's brilliance simply outshines him. Over the past 2 years, the Zhang family has completely neglected to visit the Gu household. Ever since their daughter's marriage, they've acted as if Gu Yunxi no longer exists. Ye Cheng can't say he's surprised by their indifference, but it still stings to see his wife's family turn their backs. Thanks to Ye Cheng's guidance, Chengxin Pavilion has grown by leaps and bounds over the past 2 years, firmly cementing its place in the South Sea. Not long ago, it even produced another king-level cultivator, its grand elder, bringing the pavilion's tally to 2 sovereign stage masters. Among the king realm powers scattered across Wanyao Nanhai, Chengxin Pavilion is no longer at the bottom. It has earned its seat among the mid-rank forces and continues to rise. Chapter 32. When dawn broke, Ye Cheng emerged from his 2-year seclusion. His cultivation had just stabilized at the perfection stage of mid-level Xuanwang, and now his sights were set on the next breakthrough, late-stage Xuanwang. He reached for his storage ring and examined its contents. There were plenty of herbs, but almost all were 2nd or 3rd grade, suitable only for lower-level elixirs. A sparse handful of 4th-grade medicines lay at the bottom, gifts from the master of Chengxin Pavilion. At his current power, those ingredients barely registered as useful. Ye Cheng certainly had the spirit stones to purchase higher-grade materials. His alchemy had earned him a small fortune over the past 2 years, but the market simply didn't supply what he needed. Rare main and auxiliary herbs for advanced pills almost never appeared at auction. Neither the Han and Qin empires nor the distant Wanyao Nanhai could meet demand for truly top-tier spiritual herbs. Stepping out of his private chamber, Ye Cheng was surprised to find the Gu family estate alive with celebration. The normally reserved courtyard was decked with banners and lanterns, and servants bustled through the halls, their faces bright with excitement. What was going on? He frowned, curiosity propelling him toward the commotion. Ye Cheng stepped into the main hall and paused, taking in the festive decorations. Lanterns and streamers hung everywhere, and a buzz of excitement filled the air. He caught sight of a passing maid and hailed her. "What's going on today?" he asked, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Is there a holiday? Or some celebration? The whole clan seems to be in high spirits." The maid curtsied politely. "Master, it's a happy occasion. Miss Gu Yingchai is becoming engaged to the eldest master of the An family from Yuowu City in Anyang. The clan leader and the rest have already gathered in the parlor to await the An family's arrival. Since you've been in seclusion, young master, the master instructed that no one disturb you. That's why no one told you." Yingchai? Ye Cheng frowned. There were barely 100 members in the Gu household. He knew each one. Gu Yingchai was the 2nd elder's daughter, plain in appearance, but exceptionally gifted, easily one of the top 10 talents among their young generation. He hadn't heard a word about her engagement plans. "When did this happen?" he pressed. The maid glanced around, then lowered her voice. "During the months you spent in seclusion, young master." Ye Cheng's brow tightened as he absorbed the news. So that was why the clan was so animated, and why he'd been left in the dark. He straightened his shoulders, determination flashing in his eyes. Now that he knew, he had to find out more, starting with the terms of this engagement and whether the An family's eldest master was truly worthy of Gu Yingkai. A few months ago, Ye Cheng traveled to Yuowu City and there met the eldest young master of the An family. They fell in love at first sight and soon began courting. In the Han Qin Empire's 21 states, the Gu family's seat, Jianglin City, lay in Guangzhou as little more than a backwater town. Yuowu City, by contrast, was Guangzhou's bustling capital, and among its 4 great clans, the An family ranked as a semi-royal power. I learned from the family maid that, at first, the An household gave the match short shrift. Powerful families cared deeply about suitable marriages, and the An elders deemed a remote, modest gentry such as the Gus far beneath their son. No sooner had word of the courtship spread through the An clan than the parents and counselors rallied in strong opposition. Anyang's mother had already picked out a bride for her son, one whose family was every bit as respectable as the An clans. Yet Anyang was hopelessly in love with Gu Yingkai and refused to wed anyone else. He'd even threatened to take his own life and made such a scene in the An household that they finally relented. And so this engagement came to pass. Ye Cheng allowed himself a small, amused smile. He hadn't known the whole story. Anyang really was lovesick. Even more surprising, the An family had actually given in, which seemed far kinder than the ruthless matchmakings he'd heard about in his past life. "Little miss," he said, glancing at the maid beside him, "you're remarkably well-informed." She flushed, uncertain whether he was flattering her or teasing her. Gathering her composure, she offered a curtsy. "Shall we go? Now that you've ended your retreat, I should present our respects." Beyond the front gates of the Gu residence, a long line of servants and guests had already gathered. The second elder himself stood to welcome them, though the clan's head, Gu Yuan, was conspicuously absent. The second elder personally stepped out to welcome the An family, an unmistakable gesture of respect that already did them great honor. If Gu Yuan, head of the Gu clan, had done the same, it would have looked as though he were lowering himself, admitting inferiority to the Ans. Rumor held that the Gu family was marrying into the An, but in Gu Yuan's eyes, it was anyone's guess which side was truly marrying up. The modern Gu clan was nothing like its old reputation. It now boasted 2 masters of the Xuan Wang realm, and Gu Yuan himself had only recently broken through to the half-king realm. His daughter-in-law, Zhang Lianxin, though only an 8th-level cultivator of the Calamity realm, wielded power that far outstripped his own. And his little granddaughter, 2-year-old Gu Yunxi, had already reached the 6th level of the Calamity realm, comparable in might to a half-king. With 2 Xuanwangs and 3 half-kings under their roof, who was really marrying up? Today, Ye Cheng's aura was even more inscrutable. It wasn't that the Gu family wanted to conceal their strength, they simply had no reason to flaunt it. Standing just outside the Gu Manor's gates, the Gu family stood in polite formation, waiting for the arrival of their long-promised guests. At last, a small but imposing entourage approached. The head of the An family, Lord An, strode forward, beside him a graceful woman presumed to be his wife. Behind them marched several elder cousins of the An household, each a seasoned figure in politics and authority. Before the formal introductions could begin, a joyful shout rang out. "Kair!" Young Master Anyang broke free from his father's side and hurried toward Ye Cheng, who had been standing beside the second elder Gu. Anyang swept him into a tight embrace, face alight with relief and happiness. "I told you I'd come for you," he said breathlessly. "I promised we'd be married, and here I am." Ye Cheng laughed softly, resting his chin on Anyang's shoulder. "I know, Yangge," he replied, using the affectionate nickname. "I missed you." The second elder cleared his throat discreetly, glancing around at the assembled guests. "Enough excitement for now," he murmured. "We have honored company to receive." He stepped forward, bowing politely to Lord An and his family. "Thank you all for traveling this far. Please come inside." Leading the An clan into the manor, the second elder couldn't help but smile. Everyone knew how fiercely Anyang loved Ye Cheng. He'd even staged a scene in his own home, vowing to die rather than be parted from him. Now, at long last, their union would be blessed by both houses. Second elder Ye Cheng stood proudly, his eyes shining with happiness as he watched his daughter embrace her betrothed. He was overjoyed that she'd found such deep love. But across the courtyard, Lady Anyang's mother glared at the pair, her face dark with displeasure. She had been the staunchest opponent of this marriage. There was no way she would have agreed if her son hadn't threatened to take his own life rather than marry anyone else. Marrying into a minor city family like the Gus was an insult to the An name. Suppressing her contempt, Lady Anyang's mother surveyed Ye Cheng with disdain. "He's only a 2nd-level Calamity Realm cultivator," she sneered under her breath. "Barely strong enough to serve as a deacon in our rat clan, yet here he is, representing the entire Gu family." Her lips curled into a cold smile as she turned to the assembled elders of the Gu clan. "Is this all the Gu family deems worthy of receiving us? Where is your clan leader? Why wasn't he sent to extend formal greetings?" Her words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Though the other Gu elders shifted uneasily, none dared to challenge her openly. In Lady Anyang's mother's eyes, the slight had been made, and only proper reparation would restore their honor. The delegation had come bearing their clan leader in person, yet the Gu family only bothered to send their second elder to greet them. It was hard not to feel insulted. The clan leader and the others are waiting for you in the drawing room, the second elder said, his brow furrowing as he stepped aside. Standing next to him, Aunt Gu's lips curved in a cold smile. Really makes a grand showing, doesn't he? She murmured, when even the head of the Gu family can't be bothered to show up. Mother, Mrs. Anne began, but her son, Ananyang, quietly placed a hand on her arm. His face darkened. Today was too important for any scandal. He'd already bristled at the Gu family's indifference. The An clan ranked just below the royal houses, while the Gus were only a prominent city family. Anyang had personally pleaded with his parents to attend the engagement ceremony, only to find their hosts treating them like minor nobles at best. Aunt Gu scoffed once more, but fell silent. Under the second elder's lead, the two families swept through the gate and into the stately halls of the Gu mansion. Chapter 33. Elder Second led the four and delegation into the Gu family's reception hall, where several senior members, including the clan patriarch Gu Yuan, had already taken their seats. As soon as they entered, Mrs. Anyang bristled at the sight of Gu Yuan installed in the seat of honor, smiling lightly but offering no real welcome. They had come to discuss an engagement, yet so far the Gu family's courtesies felt perfunctory at best. Mrs. Anyang, who had never favored this match, took the cold greeting as a personal affront. From the moment they crossed the threshold, not a single gesture of respect had been extended, and that only confirmed her low opinion of the Gu clan. In the An family's eyes, this match was inherently unequal. Didn't they bestow their daughter's hand as a gift? How dare the Gu behave with such reserve? To them, the Gu family's understatement was proof of disdain. But from Gu Yuan's perspective, he had every right to hold his ground. It was his daughter, his precious heir, who would be joining the An household. If he demeaned himself before another clan, how could the Gu name retain its dignity? As patriarch, Gu Yuan's composed patience spoke louder than any feigned deference. Silence reigned in the hall as both sides measured each other's pride, and agreed for now to let it speak first. As patriarch of the Gu family, he embodied its honor and reputation. In Ye Cheng's view, it was the An clan who had insulted his family, not the other way around. With a calm, measured smile, he rose from his seat, neither obsequious nor overbearing, and inclined his head toward his guests. Honored visitors, you have journeyed far to be with us. I apologize for our failure to greet you properly. Please be seated. Anyang's mother curled her lip in silent contempt. An apology for not welcoming them, she thought. They hadn't even tried to show us any hospitality. At her side, the An clan leader let his gaze sweep over Ye Cheng, and then abruptly froze. Bewilderment gave way to shock as he blinked, shook his head, and stared again. You're a half-king? Though he himself was a mighty ninth-level Tribulation Realm cultivator, he prided himself on instantly discerning others' cultivation levels. Yet every fiber of his perception screamed that Ye Cheng stood on the threshold of true sovereignty. It made no sense, but it was impossible to deny. The result struck him like lightning. The moment Patriarch An laid eyes on Ye Cheng, he sensed the exact same aura he'd witnessed in the An family's legendary ancestor, an aura belonging to a half-step king realm cultivator. The head of the Gu clan was a half-step king? A flush of alarm spread through Patriarch An's veins. The Gu family was supposed to be nothing more than a modest household in a small city. Even among Calamity Realm experts, half-step kings were exceedingly rare. The second elder he'd met earlier had barely scratched the third level of the Calamity Realm, hardly enough to merit a steward's post in the An clan. He swept his gaze over the other elders, the third elder, the first elder, all hovered at the first or second level of the Calamity Realm. The most senior amongst them had only reached level 4. None came close to Ye Cheng's power. No, a chill gripped Patriarch An's heart. Something was profoundly wrong, and the realization sent a shiver down his spine. He turned to look at Bai Heng, standing quietly beside Ye Cheng, and his blood ran cold. If discovering that Ye Cheng was a half-step king had rattled him, meeting Bai Heng's presence plunged him into outright terror. Bai Heng radiated a crushing momentum, an abyssal force, deep and bottomless, that threatened to swallow Patriarch An's very soul. Patriarch An froze under Bai Heng's gaze. Half-king level? No, actual king level? When he locked eyes with Bai Heng, the other simply inclined his head in a subtle nod and let out a low hiss. That single look sent a shock through Patriarch An's spirit, as if he'd stumbled upon an ancient, slumbering beast. His scalp tingled at the realization the Gu family actually possessed a king-tier powerhouse. The thought roared in his mind, setting his heart racing. He felt as if he were staring at a ghost. His wife was on the brink of voicing some cutting remark, but he quickly clamped a hand over hers. It suddenly made perfect sense why Ye Cheng hadn't bothered to come out and receive them himself. Why should the head of the Gu clan, a true half-king, lower himself for formalities? Even Patriarch An, as leader of his own house, was only a perfected 9th-level Calamity Realm cultivator. Legend said that the gulf between 9th level and half-king was a yawning chasm, one that few ever managed to cross. And here stood proof that the Gu family had done just that. Lord An's jaw tightened the moment he set foot in the Gu estate. Seated beside the Gu family's patriarch was none other than Ye Cheng himself, the young powerhouse whose aura radiated at true kingly rank. Standing before even a half-king was daunting enough, but facing a full-fledged king-level cultivator? The An clan leader realized with a jolt that not even the honored ancestor of his own family would have the standing to receive Ye Cheng face-to-face. Swallowing his surprise, Lord An forced himself to calm his expression. This time, it wasn't the Gu family that had overstepped, it was the An clan. With his face still frosty, he swept a warning glance around the room. Then, as if flipping a switch, he softened his tone in an instant. "Heh," he said with a deferential laugh. I beg your pardon. I must have misplaced my manners. Please forgive me. May I ask where Master Gu is? You honor us by visiting your humble abode." His abrupt change of heart left his wife, Lady Anne, blinking in bewilderment. From the corner of his eye, Lord An shot her an urgent wink. At once, every An clansman straightened, their earlier arrogance vanishing. They bowed low, voices hushed with polite greeting. Ye Cheng watched the scene with a faint, satisfied smile. Earlier, he had quietly unleashed just a trace of his kingly aura, enough to shatter any illusion that the Gu family was a mere border town household. Now the An clan understood exactly whom they were dealing with. "Don't flatter yourselves," Patriarch An muttered under his breath. "The An clan is nothing more than a minor half-king lineage. To the Gu family, we could be wiped out in the blink of an eye." He'd thought he understood the Gu family's strength, until Ye Cheng and his wife Jiang Lianxin stepped into the hall. At the sight of them, Patriarch An's jaw dropped. "Another half-king, or is that a full king?" he gasped. Officially, Lady Jiang didn't even hold the half-king title, yet her aura far outstripped anything he'd ever felt at that rank. Her presence alone crackled with kingly power. And they were so young. Patriarch An's shock finally broke through his disciplined veneer. He whirled his gaze from Ye Cheng and Jiang Lianxin to the two small figures trailing behind them. Children? A little boy and girl, no older than 4 or 5, clutched their parents' hands as they entered. Their skin was as smooth and luminous as porcelain. Every feature, delicate brows, high cheekbones, spoke of perfect breeding. It was clear these two had inherited their parents' extraordinary bloodline. In a few years' time, they would be the fairest scions of the realm, handsome and graceful in equal measure. Chief An's face went pale. That wasn't even what shocked him most. What truly staggered him were the cultivation levels of those two children. The little boy, barely 4 or 5 years old, was at the first Calamity Realm. The little girl? She'd already broken through to the 6th Calamity Realm. His legs nearly gave out. Was he losing his mind? One impossible revelation after another tumbled over him, each more unbelievable than the last. 2 half-kings and 2 full kings in a single family was astounding enough, but 2 toddlers holding Calamity Realm ranks? Preposterous. He muttered a curse under his breath. The Gu family, they're all monsters. A 20-year-old D-king, a preschooler at the first Calamity, and another child at the 6th. This is insane. A wave of nausea hit him. Thank heavens he didn't know their true ages, or he might have vomited blood right then and there. That evening, as the delegation rose from the dinner table and made their way back to the little guest courtyard the Gu family had prepared, Patriarch Shin still felt as if he'd woken into a dream. He'd never in his life seen anything quite like the household of Ye Cheng, formerly Gu Changqing, whose 2 toddlers, though scarcely 2 years old, already looked like 4 or 5-year-olds, robust and oddly mature for their age. Madame An, however, was far from impressed. As soon as they stepped inside the guest quarters, she shot her husband a puzzled look. "I don't understand any of it," she said. "One moment you were your usual proud self, the next you bowed so low you nearly kissed the floor, and your talk of half-kings and calamity realms, what on earth does it mean?" And Shin grinned, rubbing his temples. "Patience, my lady, let me explain what I've learned tonight." He settled into a cushioned chair, beckoning her to join him. First, the head of the Gu family, Ye Cheng, isn't just a powerful cultivator, he's half in the king realm. He inherited that status from his ancestor, who is said to have ascended beyond the Seven Ruins. Second, those two children aren't ordinary toddlers. They were born within the Calamity Realm, a perilous dimension that only the most gifted can enter and survive. Madame Anne's eyes widened. A king realm? A calamity realm? Since when do such things exist in our world? Anshin chuckled softly. "You'll have to ask Gu Ye Cheng for the long version. All I know is that his strength and his family's history far surpasses anything we've ever encountered. That's why I'm treating this match with the utmost respect." She sank back, still bewildered but less resentful. "So, our Anyang is about to marry into a clan of prodigies and transcendent cultivators." "That's exactly right." And Shin stood and offered his arm. "Come, let's rest. Tomorrow, we speak with Gu Ye Cheng again and settle the wedding details. After tonight, I'd rather not anger someone who can call on half a king realm to punish me." Madame An allowed herself a small laugh, finally sharing his amusement. "Very well, but only if you promise to fill me in on all the rest of these secret realms before I'm expected to curtsy like a maiden to future sisters-in-law who might be 5 years old today and 2 tomorrow." With that, the two of them left the courtyard lanterns glowing softly behind them, both eager and a little uneasy about the extraordinary family they were soon to join. One child is only at the first level of the Tribulation realm, but the other has already broken through to the 6th level. "Husband, are you ill?" "What utter nonsense," his wife blurted, incredulous. Even the matriarch stared at him in disbelief. The idea that two children, barely 4 or 5 years old, had cultivated into the Tribulation realm, one of them already at the 6th level, sounding to her more like a fairy tale than reality. "I know it sounds impossible," Patriarch Anne pressed on, voice low but firm, "but it's all true. We've completely underestimated the Gu family." Room fell silent. No county clan, no matter how well connected, could muster such prodigies, certainly not two toddlers capable of shattering the boundaries of mortal cultivation. Yet here he stood, convinced. Finally, the matriarch drew a shaky breath. "The Gu family isn't some small-town household," she said, regaining her composure. "They must be one of the hidden houses. Tomorrow, your attitude toward them cannot be the same as it is today. Do you understand?" His wife's head dipped in rapid agreement. "So, it isn't the Gu family marrying up to us, it's us who are fortunate to match with them." "Exactly." Patriarch Anne's eyes gleamed with excitement. "One of those children, Gu Ye Cheng, has already reached the 6th level. This alliance elevates our entire family, standing. This is a golden opportunity for our An clan, a chance to forge a bond with a secretive house like the Gu family." Chapter 34, Gu Ye Cheng's wedding, once set for 2 weeks from now, had suddenly been put on hold. Word spread like wildfire through the Wanyao Sea. Something's happening in the Xuanhuang secret realm. Are they really going to open it? It's everywhere. It can't be a lie. To cultivators of the Han and Qin empires and those scattered through the outer seas, the Xuanhuang secret realm is no mere legend. 1,000 years ago, Emperor Xuanhuang ruled the Wanyao Sea with absolute authority. It was he who founded Xuanqian Palace, the undisputed powerhouse of that era, and crushed the monster emperor giants who stalked the inner sea. After his victory, even the boldest human emperors hesitated to set foot in the outer 4 seas. Geographically, the Wanyao Sea is divided into 5 great regions. At its heart lies the Inner Sea, a forbidden domain swarming with monsters and off-limits to human cultivators. Surrounding it are the 4 outer seas, to the southeast, northeast, northwest, and southwest, where mortal kingdoms and sects flourish. Even the most powerful sovereigns knew better than to challenge the Inner Sea's deadly reputation. And now, with rumors of the secret realm's awakening, the entire cultivation world braced itself for an upheaval unlike any in a millennium. Emperor Xuan's death was shrouded in mystery. One day, she simply vanished, along with the Xuantian palace she had built in the Wanyao Sea, and left no trace. It wasn't until entrances to 4 hidden realms opened at the boundaries between the inner and outer seas that anyone suspected the truth. At first, no one realized these secret domains were connected to Emperor Xuan. But when explorers uncovered countless relics of the Xuantian palace, and even artifacts bearing Emperor Xuan's seal, inside one of the realms, it became clear that she had not escaped but had fallen into that hidden world. News of her disappearance and presumed demise sent shockwaves throughout the seas. Demon emperors from the inner sea surged outward, confronting the human race in a cataclysmic clash. In the outer 4 seas of Wanyao, human forces suffered grievous losses, and several of their own emperors were slain. None felt the devastation more keenly than the South Sea, where nearly every participating emperor perished in the frenzy of war. Chapter title: The Xuanhuang Secret Realm opens. For the next millennium, the South Sea would remain the weakest of the 4 outer seas. Even now, it stands as the only one among them without an emperor. But a piece of extraordinary news had just arrived. The long-sealed Xuanhuang Secret Realm was about to reopen. A rare family assembly had been called in the Gu Ancestral Hall. At the head of the long table sat 2 figures, Patriarch Gu Yuan and beside him, Gu Ye Cheng. Though Gu Yuan bore the title of clan head, every member of the Gu family, even Gu Yuan himself, acknowledged that Ye Cheng was the true pillar upon which their future rested. Ye Cheng cleared his throat and spoke evenly. How many years has it been since the last opening of the Xuanhuang Secret Realm? Gu Yuan consulted a jade tablet, then answered, 37 years ago. Does the interval between openings stay the same each time? No, replied the patriarch. It's irregular. In fact, the longest gap on record reached 50 years. Ye Cheng nodded thoughtfully. Every time the realm reopens, it attracts countless sects and formidable cultivators, especially those elder masters who are desperate for a breakthrough before their lifespans run out. A hush fell over the hall as the weight of those words sank in. The reopening of the Xuanhuang Secret Realm would set off a storm of ambition, and the Gu family would have to prepare for the onslaught of powerhouses about to descend upon the South Sea. They'll also send people out in the mortal world to scout for breakthroughs, Uncle Gu Yuan continued, his tone steady. Every time the Xuanhuang Secret Realm opens, it forges a fresh crop of powerhouses. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The realm bars anyone above the Emperor tier from entering, but there's no lower limit. Even cultivators in the body-forging realm can step through, though practically only those at true spirit or above stand a chance. A body-forging novice would be torn apart by any monster they encountered. He leaned forward, voice dropping. Opportunities in the Xuanhuang Secret Realm are immense, but so are the risks. Not even kings are guaranteed safe passage. More than one has fallen and never returned. And once you enter, you lose all contact with your companions. You're scattered randomly throughout the realm. Gu Ye Cheng listened intently. Although this was his first time hearing about the Xuanhuang Secret Realm, Uncle Gu Yuan had done his homework. So, the elder said, looking around the great hall, who among you is willing to go? Gu Ye Cheng swept his gaze across the assembled faces. The Gu family's senior elders sat arranged respectfully along the lacquered benches, their expressions grave. Beyond them stood a handful of the clan's most promising youths, their eyes alight with ambition and just as much anxiety. Gu Ye Cheng squared his shoulders. He was resolved. Whatever lay in that realm, he would face it head-on. Count me in. Brother Ye Cheng, I'll go too. Xuanhuang Secret Realm only opens once in a lifetime. How could we miss this chance? Voices clamored in agreement. First elder, third elder, and ninth elder all stepped forward without hesitation. From the younger ranks, Gu Ling, Gu Yuan, and Gu Wangshuan, the Gu family's top 3 prodigies, followed suit. Thanks to Gu Ye Cheng's guidance over the past 2 years, each had advanced into the true spirit realm. All right, Gu Ye Cheng said, his expression turning serious. But be warned, the Xuanhuang Secret Realm is brimming with dangers. Once you enter, you'll be scattered randomly, and I won't be able to offer much help. You'll have to rely on your own strength. We understand, they answered in unison. Ye Cheng paused, then added, Cultivation is about defying fate itself. If you're afraid of every risk, why train at all? Wouldn't it be easier to live an ordinary life? His words struck home. Gu Ling, Gu Yuan, and Gu Wangjuan exchanged determined looks. They could have opted to stay safe. After all, with the elixirs Ye Cheng had provided, their resources were more than enough. But safety held no appeal when opportunity beckoned. We won't let you down, brother Ye Cheng, Gu Ling declared. Good, Ye Cheng replied. Gather your supplies tonight. At dawn, we depart. With that, the group dispersed to make final preparations, hearts steeled for the trials awaiting them in the Xuanhuang secret realm. Despite their nerves, the three young disciples still volunteered to go. Ye Cheng admired their courage. Once he'd chosen his traveling companions, he gathered his supplies and prepared to set off. Bai Heng, he said, turning to the veteran disciple who would remain behind in the Gu household, your cultivation must be hitting a bottleneck, right? Bai Heng bowed his head respectfully. Thanks to you, Lord Gu, I've just broken through to the early Xuanhuang stage. Under Ye Cheng's guidance, these past 2 years, Bai Heng's strength had skyrocketed. In the Xuanhuang realm, even a small advancement typically took decades, sometimes longer, to move from the opening phase to its mastery. Yet Bai Heng had done it in just 24 months. He couldn't help but feel deep gratitude toward Ye Cheng. Without his patron's intervention, Bai Heng would have died years ago, or at best remained stuck at half-king perfection until his natural lifespan ended. Now that he'd crossed the king threshold, his life energy had expanded dramatically. He still had plenty of time to cultivate further, and at this pace, the Emperor realm no longer seemed a distant dream. Just thinking about it set his heart racing. Wait for me to come back and help you break through the mid-stage. Yes, master. Just as the two disciples prepared to depart, 2 small figures came sprinting over to Ye Cheng, Jie, each grabbing one of his hands in eager anticipation. Daddy, Daddy, take us with you, the younger one pleaded, eyes wide. I want to go too. I'm already strong enough. Grandpa can't even beat me, the older sister Yunxi crowed proudly. Grandpa Gu Yuan, standing nearby, bristled at the boast. How dare she claim superiority over him? He opened his mouth to retort, but wisely held back. For his granddaughter's sake, he swallowed his pride. Before Ye Cheng could respond, a firm voice cut through the commotion. Jiang Lianqin stepped forward, her tone no nonsense. Where do you two think you're going? This isn't a game. The secret realm is riddled with danger. You stay here and keep yourselves safe. She regarded them critically, but she knew better than to underestimate these girls. One had already broken through to the first level of the Calamity realm. The other stood firm in the 6th. Any would-be threat would soon learn just how formidable Ye Cheng's daughters had become. Even Gu Yunxi, barely 2 years old yet, already at the 6th level of the Calamity realm, could hold her own against Ye Cheng's father, Gu Yuan, who had only just broken into the early half-king realm. No wonder Jiang Lianqin worried about letting the twins travel unchecked. It's all right, Gu Yuan soothed, ruffling Ye Cheng's hair. When you're older and stronger, I'll let you go wherever you wish. Study hard now, and once you reach the king realm, your mother and I won't stand in your way. Ye Cheng nodded in agreement. Though the 2 siblings looked 4 or 5 years old, they'd only just turned 2, far too young for such adventures. Okay, Gu Yunxi whispered. We'll stay here until Mommy and Daddy return, she added, pressing a quick kiss to Ye Cheng's cheek. Disappointment tugged at them both. Yet a spark of mischief gleamed in Ye Cheng's dark eyes. With Ye Cheng, Jiang Lianqin, and the others bound for the Wanyao Nanhai and the entrance to the Xuanhuang secret realm, the 2 toddlers watched them go. No sooner had the caravan disappeared than Ye Cheng and Yunxi leaned close, whispering their next clever scheme. Ye Cheng tugged at his sister's sleeve, his eyes shining with excitement. Yunxi, do you want to sneak into the Xuanhuang secret realm with me? Gu Yunxi hesitated, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Of course I do, but father said we're too young. He absolutely won't allow it. Ye Cheng's grin grew wider. So what? We have the life-saving jade talisman father gave us. What's there to fear? We'll slip in, explore a bit, then slip right back out. No one will ever know. I heard that once you enter the secret realm, everyone gets separated anyway. It's huge. Father and mother would never find us there. But Yunxi's voice trailed off. She was their parents' most dutiful child, always careful to follow their rules, unlike her reckless little brother. Come on, sister, Ye Cheng teased, nudging her playfully. You're such a scaredy cat. If you won't go, I'll do it myself. Yunxi chewed her lip. But if father and mother find out, they'll be furious. We'll get in so much trouble. Ye Cheng waved away her worries as though brushing dust from his sleeve. They love us too much to punish us harshly. At worst, we'll get a scolding, and if they ask who's to blame, just say it was my idea. Yunxi sighed, unable to resist her brother's boundless confidence. Fine, you little terror, let's go. With that, the two siblings slipped away under the fading light, hearts pounding with the thrill of adventure and no small amount of mischief. Unnoticed by anyone, the two boys, Ye Cheng and his companion, slipped quietly into the Xuanhuang secret realm. Chapter 35. At the same time, the Jiang family summoned everyone selected for the expedition and began preparations to depart. They treated the opening of the Xuanhuang secret realm with utmost seriousness, so much so that even the venerable Jiang Tianwang was dispatched. Decades ago, Jiang Tianwang had ascended to the pinnacle of the Tianwang realm, standing just one breath away from the God King realm, yet he had been unable to cross that final threshold. Years of secluded cultivation brought no breakthrough, and until now, no opportunity had presented itself. With the Xuanhuang secret realm reopening, he refused to miss this chance. This was not Jiang Tianwang's first journey into the secret realm. When it last opened, he ventured inside and returned transformed. His triumph there had carried him to the Tianwang realm in a single bound. Among the younger generation of the Jiang family, no one shone brighter than Jiang Baiwei. Today, she was universally acknowledged as the Han Qin Empire's top prodigy, having already reached the 5th level of the Calamity Realm. Since awakening her spirit body, Jiang Baiwei has blasted through several realms in just 2 years, far outstripping her half-sister, Jiang Lianxin, ever did. In fact, she's become so famous that everywhere in the Han Qin Empire, prodigies proudly claim to be the first to challenge her. Mention the Jiang family today, and people think first of Jiang Tianwang, then of Jiang Baiwei. Poor Lianxin? Ever since she married into the Gu clan and settled in that remote border town, her existence has slipped from everyone's mind. Even her own father refuses to speak her name, as though she never existed. Of course, Lianxin must have heard countless tales of Baiwei's deeds by now. But honestly, Jiang Baiwei barely spares her half-sister a thought. Smiling to herself, she brushes the matter aside. We're from different worlds now. With that settled, she turns her eyes to the Chenxin Pavilion in Wanyao Nanhai. All of its disciples have gathered and stand ready. Soon they will depart for the Xuanhuang secret realm. A colossal flying vessel drifted above the gates of Chenxin Pavilion, its prow emblazoned with the banner of Qingluan Palace. Below, Chenxin's disciples stood shoulder to shoulder with visiting adepts and elders from Qingluan Palace. Ever since Chenxin Pavilion had been elevated to a king-level force, Qingluan Palace had gone out of its way to extend friendship and cooperation. Over the past 2 years, the two sects had drawn ever closer, their disciples trading visits and sparring in joint training more frequently than ever. Among the younger generation of Nanhai, Gu Qinger had just broken through into the Calamity Realm, instantly becoming one of its brightest rising stars. Her beauty was spoken of in hushed, admiring tones, and yet, despite the countless suitors vying for her hand, she had never shown favor to any of them. In her heart, none of their talents or charms could compare even in the slightest to her great and only longing, brother Ye Cheng. 2 full years had passed since they last met, and she missed him deeply. Every day of that time, she had pushed herself relentlessly in cultivation, determined not to fall short of his expectations and longing for nothing more than to hear his praise again at the moment of their reunion. Fairy Gu, are you ready? It's time to depart. Standing beside Gu Ye Cheng, Yuan Fei offered him an encouraging smile. Yuan Fei wasn't a disciple of Chenxin Pavilion, but of Qingluan Palace, and a highly honored one at that. As one of Qingluan's saints, his reputation preceded him, and rumors even suggested he harbored a special fondness for Gu Ye Cheng. I'm ready, Gu Ye Cheng replied, returning Yuan Fei's smile. He stepped onto the sleek flying boat tethered at the Chenxin Pavilion's dock. Qingluan Palace's contribution to the joint expedition. After long negotiations, the heads of both sects had agreed to accompany one another to the entrance of the secret realm, promising mutual protection until they passed through its threshold. They had further instructed their disciples that anyone who ran into members of the opposite faction inside the realm was to join forces and explore together. Chenqin Pavilion's younger disciples cheered at the idea, but among the Qingluan contingent, expressions darkened. Chenqin Pavilion, though rising quickly as a king-level power, still lacked the battle-hardened strength of Qingluan's veterans. To Qingluan's elders, sending their finest warriors into the secret realm alongside these less experienced recruits felt more like a liability than a blessing. If Fairy Gu herself had appeared, the young disciples of Qingluan Palace would have been overjoyed. His sister would have been just as thrilled. A few days later, Ye Cheng led the Gu family's party through the gleaming halls of Chenqin Pavilion. Tapping into his spiritual sense, he swept the pavilion grounds, and to his surprise, neither the pavilion master nor Gu Qinger remained. It was clear they had slipped away ahead of them, bound for the entry to the Xuanhuang secret realm. Without pausing, Ye Cheng pressed on toward the inner sea. He knew that the secret realm has 4 gateways, one at each junction where the outer seas meet the inner sea, and that any voyage from the South China Sea must pass a lone island called Tianbi. By the time they sighted its jagged peaks, they were already within striking distance of both the inner sea and the Xuanhuang entrance. Tianbi Island was notorious for its savage wildlife. Drawn by the confluence of energies, extraordinary beasts roamed its shores, creatures far more powerful than any found elsewhere. And as Ye Cheng and his companions prepared to land, they knew the real trial was only just beginning. If a great power, say Chenqin Pavilion or Qingluan Palace, sends a king-rank escort, then crossing the Wanyao South Sea and reaching the Xuanhuang secret realm's entrance, is little more than a formality. But king-level forces number barely a dozen throughout the entire sea. Without their champions, even half-king protectors cannot guarantee safe passage. Ships still vanish or suffer heavy losses. Most cultivators below the half-king tier, those in the true spirit or robbery realms, gather on Tianbi Island. There they pool resources, form expedition teams, or hire stronger guardians, all in hopes of surviving the hazardous voyage. King-rank masters disdain such precautions, yet some half-kings, eager to pad their spiritual stone coffers, will take low-level disciples under their wing, both for extra manpower and for the fees these weaker cultivators are willing to pay. As dawn broke over Tianbi Island, the bustling harbor came alive with the promise of adventure and profit. Cries rang out from every pier. Qingyang Seaboat, under Senior Banwang's command, 600 spirit stones per ticket, first come, first served, only a handful of seats remain. Ye Cheng paused at the edge of the crowd, weighing his options. A moment later, 2 broad-shouldered men in plain black robes sidled up to him, sizing him up with keen eyes. "Hey, young man," one of them rumbled, patting the pouch of spirit stones hanging at his waist. "You look the part. Strong, capable. Why not join our crew? Our elders have all broken through to the tribulation realm." The other man slapped down a stack of stones on a wooden crate. 500 spirit stones, no hidden fees. Senior Banwang vouches for our safety record. We set sail for the Xuanhuang secret realm tonight. Across the dock, a woman in her early 30s, draped in flowing purple robes, watched the exchange with a nervous frown. In her hand, she clenched another small pouch of spirit stones, torn between helping these 2 recruit new blood and the promise of quick cash for her own modest team. Ye Cheng's eyes darted between the competing offers. For half-king masters, a few hundred stones might barely cover a new robe or weapon. But to ordinary cultivators like him, strugglers without powerful sect backing, it was a fortune. The trip to the Xuanhuang secret realm promised Dan, jeer and reward in equal measure. Now all that remained was his decision. Which boat would carry him into the unknown? If Ye Cheng were here, he'd recognize her at once. The woman in purple was indeed Mu Zi, one of the principal auctioneers at the Haiyue auction house, but she looked nothing like the poised, radiant beauty he'd seen presiding over the auction 2 years ago. Gone was the noble bearing. In its place was exhaustion written into every line of her face. The change didn't come from mere age or fatigue. In the past 24 months, Haiwei Island had been shaken to its core. Of the 5 great semi-king families, only 4 remained. The Mo family, once powerful and at odds with Ye Cheng, had been wiped out. No foreign army had swept in. The Duan clan, previously the weakest of the 5, had carried out the destruction. Their ancestor, long thought ordinary, had returned from a mysterious expedition with strength rivaling a perfected semi-king. Under his leadership, the Duans rose with terrifying speed, and with them vanished the Mos. Muzi's haggard appearance was emblematic of everything that had happened since. The island's grandest families had been reshuffled, loyalties tested, and fortunes reversed. And now, standing before Ye Cheng, she wore 2 years of hardship like a second skin. He remembered the elegance she once radiated. Now he only saw the toll those turbulent years had taken on her. Emboldened by their recent breakthrough to semi-king perfection, the Duan family could no longer tolerate sharing the spoils of the Haiwei auction house with the other 4 great clans. Their demand was absolute control and total expulsion of their rivals from Haiwei Island. Unwilling to bow, the 4 remaining semi-king families formed an unprecedented alliance and struck back at the Duans. Yet even united, they stood little chance against a true semi-king perfection. In the decisive battle, the Mo family was wiped out completely. The Mu clan suffered nearly as badly. Of their 2 semi-king heirs, one fell in combat, leaving only Yin Taishang alive and gravely wounded. Nearly half of the Mu's senior leadership perished alongside him. The clan now teeters on the brink of destruction. Only one grim consolation remains. In forcing such a one-sided victory, the Duan patriarch, freshly ascended to semi-king perfection, overextended himself. He emerged victorious but not unscathed, bearing severe injuries from the desperate resistance of the 4 clans. As Haiwei Island reels from the carnage, every family now wonders who will be the next to fall, and who might seize the auction house's throne next. If Ye Cheng had waited until he'd fully consolidated his realm before striking at the 4 great families, he never would have ended up wounded. Now, with both sides' half-king-level powerhouses injured, the battle has ground to a stalemate. Whoever recovers first will seize the advantage. The Mu clan emptied their coffers, trying to save Yin Taishang's life, which helps explain why even 500 spirit stones now mortifies Muzi. That sum, once pocket change to her, is no longer trivial. Her journey into the Xuanwang secret realm isn't merely to cure Taishang, it's a matter of her family's survival. Muzi's voice trembled as she forced herself to negotiate. 500 spirit stones. It's too steep. Could you ask for any less? She dared not face the treacherous sea alone. Without a half-king's protection, she wouldn't last a moment. Riding with Ye Cheng would dramatically improve her odds. He regarded her quietly. Exhaustion had hollowed her cheeks, but it couldn't conceal her noble bearing. After a heartbeat, a slow smile curled at the corner of his lips. "I'm willing to reduce my fee," he said softly, but his gaze lingered on her with unmistakable intent. A soft, almost imperceptible charm radiated from Muzi's form, quickening the pulse of everyone nearby. She frowned, ready to turn and leave, when a brilliant streak of light suddenly cleaved through the sky. Head snapped upward, eyes gleaming with envy and excitement. "A King Realm Master," someone whispered. "He looks so young to be a senior in the King Realm," another murmured. In their world, the ability to fly marked the pinnacle of power, and a cultivator of that caliber could cross treacherous waters unscathed. This sea was no mere inland expanse, after all. Muzi's gaze followed the streak of light until she recognized the figure at its fore, and froze. "Senior Ye Cheng?" she breathed. Above her, Ye Cheng sensed a familiar aura and inclined his head to look downward. Their eyes met, and surprise flashed across his handsome features. Muzi, the famed auctioneer of the Haiwei auction house, stood directly below him. He had intended only to skim past Tianbi Island, but seeing her here made him pause. Chapter 36. "Husband, do you know this young lady?" Zhang Lianqin asked with a teasing smile. She had long since given up trying to curtail Ye Cheng's extracurricular activities. Over the years, his power had grown astonishingly, and his abilities in other realms remained equally impressive. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, she half joked about him taking a concubine, or even a second wife, to help relieve the pressure. This wasn't the first time she'd brought it up. Ye Cheng merely nodded and looked down at the newcomer. "Miss Mu, please join me." He felt a flicker of surprise. Mu Zi should have been on Haiyue Island, running the auction house as its head auctioneer. The Mu family certainly had others who could handle an expedition into the Xuanhuang secret realm. What circumstances had brought her here instead? Strangest of all, she stood alone, with no bodyguards, not even a minor cultivator escort, and her face was drawn, eyes shadowed by fatigue. She was a far cry from the confident woman he remembered 2 years ago. His invitation caused a stir among the assembled cultivators. All eyes turned to Mu Zi, envy and curiosity mingling in their gazes. Fate had placed her and his favor squarely in the spotlight. Everyone present, including the man who'd earlier harbored unsavory designs on Mu Zi, stood frozen in disbelief. A cultivator in purple actually knew Ye Cheng, a senior of the King Realm? Nervous sweat ran down their backs. "Senior Gu, may I accompany you?" one of them stuttered. Mu Zi herself hadn't expected to run into Ye Cheng here, but he clearly remembered her, this petite young woman. "Of course," Ye Cheng replied with a gentle smile. Adding one more companion was no trouble at all. Since he knew her, why not bring her along? Under a sea of envious eyes, Ye Cheng guided Mu Zi forward. He paused before a dignified man and bowed respectfully. "Father, this is Mu Zi, a friend of mine." Then, turning to Mu Zi, he swept his hand in the other direction. "And this is my wife, Zhang Lianxin." As Mu Zi's gaze landed on Zhang Lianxin, her heart skipped a beat. The other woman's beauty was ethereal, faultless and regal. For a moment, Mu Zi felt the color drain from her face. She forced a smile and said, "Senior Gu's wife is incredibly beautiful." Mu Zi had always thought herself fairly attractive, but standing beside Zhang Lianxin, she realized she'd never before encountered anyone who so utterly eclipsed her in grace and beauty. Ye Cheng's lips curved into a faint, wry smile. Compared to Mu Zi, he truly felt the bitterness of her situation. Now that he understood why she had appeared on Tianbi Island, and why she was bound for the Xuanhuang secret realm, he realized how dramatically Haiyue Island and the Mu family had changed in the past 2 years. "As for the Haiyue auction house," he said, "I'd much rather work with someone I already trust." Mu Zi opened her mouth, clearly puzzled by his remark. She'd expected him to urge her on to the secret realm. Instead, Ye Cheng continued, his tone matter of fact. "You're far too weak to face the Xuanhuang secret realm on your own. Go to the Chenxin Pavilion instead. Ask to see the Grand Elder. He's still in charge there, even though the pavilion master has gone off on his own journey. The Grand Elder will help you deal with your family's crisis." Mu Zi stared at him. "He can help me?" Ye Cheng nodded. "Without question." Mu Zi's brow furrowed. "Seek out the Chenxin Pavilion? Entrust the fate of the Mu clan to them?" She knew the pavilion's reputation well. Just last year, they'd ascended to king-level status in the South China Sea, and already they'd produced yet another king-level powerhouse. Relying on their strength might be her only hope. In the Wanyao South China Sea, Chenxin Pavilion was enjoying the height of its power. Mu Zi hesitated. "But I don't even know the great elder of Chenxin Pavilion." Ye Cheng smiled. "You will. Chenxin Pavilion answers to me." Mu Zi's eyes went wide. What a newly promoted kinglai, evil sect like Chenxin Pavilion, and it was under Senior Gu's command? The revelation hit her like a thunderclap, a king-level power. Yet, looking back at Ye Cheng's extraordinary skill and composure, it suddenly made perfect sense. "Senior Gu's grace is boundless," she said, her voice trembling with gratitude. "Mu Zi will never forget this debt. From now on, I pledge myself to you, your devoted servant." With that, she sank to her knees before him. Ye Cheng's simple declaration had instantly solved the Mu family's crisis. No matter how formidable the Duan clan claimed to be, they were at most a half-king household. Even at the pinnacle of half-king cultivation, they were nothing but ants before a king-level force like Chenxin Pavilion. And Chenxin Pavilion needed do nothing more than issue a single command. The Duan family would dare not lift a finger against the Mus. "Mu Zi, take a good look. This is the deterrent power of a king-level cultivator," Ye Cheng said softly, the air around him humming with restrained might. He folded his arms, his gaze steady. "Forget about serving me personally. What I really want is your Mu clan. If they agree, you'll come under my protection, just as the Chenshin Pavilion has. Muzi's brow furrowed. She didn't need more servants. But if the entire Mu family pledged to him, the benefits would be enormous. Access to resources, training, and a shield against their looming enemies. Ye Cheng's lips curved in a half-smile. And think of the convenience. You won't have to frantically refine pills or sell them for spiritual stones. Those shortages will be a thing of the past. Before she could answer, he raised a hand to pause her. Don't decide on the spot. Go back. Confer with your clan's ancestor. I'm not forcing you. My offer stands whether you accept it or not. In the meantime, Chenshin Pavilion will help your family weather the crisis. Reaching into his storage ring, Ye Cheng withdrew a sleek, ebony-plumed eagle. Its wings sparkled with latent power, even as it cooed softly. This is the Feiyan Eagle, a Calamity Realm winged beast. It will carry you straight to Chenshin Pavilion. He stroked the eagle's neck affectionately. I raise these birds as mounts for my 2 children. They're more pets than war beasts, since I feed them spiritual pills to keep their power in check. But make no mistake, they're formidable flyers at the Calamity Realm. Muzi managed a nod, her heart still pounding. With a final glance at the Feiyan Eagle, she prepared to return home, her mind already racing through the implications of Ye Cheng's proposal. Muzi settled onto the back of the Feiyan Eagle, heart pounding as she gave one last look to the young man at the pavilion gate. Thank you, Senior Ye Cheng, she called, her voice earnest. Though a simple thank you could never repay all he had done, she was determined to prove her gratitude in action. Under Ye Cheng's watchful eye, she knew exactly what she had to do, build her business, and earn her way back to his favor. The Feiyan Eagle soared toward Chenshin Pavilion in a fraction of the time an ordinary mount could manage. Within days, its taloned feet touched down on the pavilion's stone courtyard. Muzi dismounted and presented the voice talisman Ye Cheng had entrusted to her. The Grand Elder, who oversaw the pavilion's daily affairs, received it with wide-eyed astonishment. Everyone in Chenshin Pavilion knew that orders from Ye Cheng carried more weight than even the masters. No one dared to question his will. As the Grand Elder carefully examined the talisman, he bowed deeply to Muzi. Miss Mu, thanks to Senior Gu's decree, you are our honored guest. Please rest assured about Haiyue Island. I will accompany you there personally. Haiyue Island lay just beyond the Lanchi archipelago, a short 2 or 3 day flight for a King Realm expert like the Grand Elder. Bound by Ye Cheng's command, he could think of nothing more pressing than escorting Muzi safely to her destination. 3 days later, the wind-whipped sails of the Feiyan Eagle dipped toward the cliffs of Haiyue Island. Salt spray glittered in the morning light as Muzi prepared to set foot on the island that held her next challenge and the next step in her promise to Senior Ye Cheng. Haiyue City today was a shadow of its former self, now eerily deserted, its once bustling streets emptied. 2 years ago, the city had thrived under the protection of the island's 5 semi-king clans, but savage infighting among them drove most cultivators away and even forced many native islanders to flee. Until this internecine war ends, Haiyue City's golden age will remain nothing more than a memory. Miss Mu, what is your will regarding the Duan clan? Shall we annihilate them or leave them be? The question came from the elder, hovering silently in midair, his aura crackling with latent power as he stared down at the Duan estate. Inside, the clan's patriarch, a semi-king at the peak of his strength, still languished in seclusion, tending to grievous injuries. Destroy them, Muzi replied with chilling calm. She clenched her fists, recalling the Duan's ruthless slaughter of so many in her own clan. Mercy was not an option. Very well. The elder spoke once, then struck. A crushing palm of spiritual force, charged with king-tier power, unleashed from his outstretched hand. In an instant, a colossal imprinted palm coalesced above the Duan mansion, its presence alone warping the air as it prepared to descend and obliterate everything below. A moment later, a thunderous shockwave slammed into the Duan family's ancestral mansion. Inside, the Duan patriarch's eyes snapped open, and he burst out onto the main terrace. All around him, clan members stared upward in terror at the roiling mass of spiritual power coalescing in the sky. A king-tier powerhouse. Someone gasped. Heaven and earth themselves seemed to buckle under the force of that attack, a signature move of a king-level martial artist. News of the assault spread like wildfire throughout Haiyue City, and the Duan Patriarch's voice rang out, defiant yet trembling. Which King Realm Master dares strike at my Duan family? We may not rank among the great clans, but you have no cause to destroy us. I'll wager the South Sea Kings won't stand idly by if you press this assault. Meanwhile, in the chambers of the Chengxin Pavilion, the Grand Elder allowed himself a cold smile. On the brink of defeat himself, the Duan Patriarch still resorted to invoking the South Sea Kings, as if that name alone could save him. That level of desperation was almost amusing. How very naive. A massive hand slammed down with terrifying force, reducing the Duan family's estate to rubble in an instant. In that single brutal strike, the Duan Patriarch and hundreds of his kin were wiped out. Chapter 37. At the Mu family estate, Yin Taishang, still in seclusion and recovering from his injuries, suddenly opened his eyes. He swung open the door and stepped outside, where a breathless clan attendant was waiting. Taishang, it's happened. Yin Taishang's heart skipped. What is it? Has the Duan clan attacked again? The attendant shook his head, disbelief and relief warring on his face. No, what's incredible is that the Duan family has been utterly destroyed. By a single palm strike, hundreds of Duan disciples, even Patriarch Duan himself, were annihilated. One blow, Yin Taishang's voice quivered. It has to be someone from the Wangjing realm. How could the Duans have offended a Wangjing powerhouse? The attendant bowed. Heaven truly favors the Mu family. Yin Taishang, whose calm reserve rarely cracked, let out an astonished laugh. He had never imagined that the long-running feud between the Mu family's 3 half-Wang branches and the Duan clan would end so decisively. Had Patriarch Duan recovered, their 3 half-Wangs would have faced grave danger. Before he could say more, another attendant rushed forward. Taishang, Ye Cheng has returned. Yin Taishang's smile froze. He took a steadying breath, then inclined his head. Show him in. Xiaoye stepped into the hall at last, just as Yin Taishang had hoped. He hurried over, face alight with relief. Perfect timing, he said, addressing her warmly. You don't need to rush off hunting for more healing pills. Let me fill you in on everything. Mu Zi, known to the clan as Xiaoye, had slipped away for the Xuanhuang Secret Realm expedition without informing a single soul, least of all Yin Taishang. She knew he would never have approved. Her cultivation was too fragile. The dangers within the secret realm were lethal. The odds of surviving such a journey were slim. Still, she had gone, determined to either prevail or perish in silence. Now she stood before him, accompanied by the great elder of Chengxin Pavilion. Yin Taishang couldn't contain his excitement. Ha! The crisis facing the Mu family is over. Mu Zi frowned in confusion. Before she could ask what he meant, Yin Taishang blurted out, the Duan family, someone at kingly rank, took offense at them. That senior simply laid waste to their entire estate. He threw back his head and laughed. Can you imagine? One strike and the Duan mansion is nothing but ruins. We scarcely believed it until we saw the debris with our own eyes. Xiaoye exchanged a glance with the great elder, then turned back to Yin Taishang. So that's why you were so eager for my return. No more chasing elixirs, then? Yin Taishang nodded vigorously. Exactly. Rest now, and soon you'll hear every detail. As Mu Zi sank into a nearby seat, she allowed herself a moment of respite, but her mind raced with questions. Who was this mysterious king-level figure? And what would the ruins of the Duan estate reveal about the power now backing their foes and their friends? Mu Zi's words cut through the air like a blade. She turned to the elder from Chengxin Pavilion standing at her side and said, Yin Taishang, the one who destroyed the entire Duan family, wasn't some anonymous king-level cultivator. It was Senior Ye Cheng right here. At once, the pleased smile on Yin Taishang's face froze. He blinked, suddenly aware of the white-haired man beside Mu Zi. You're saying it was this senior? He stammered. The one who wiped out the Duan clan? Mu Zi inclined her head. Allow me to make a proper introduction. This is Grand Elder Ye Cheng of Chengxin Pavilion. Grand Elder of Chengxin Pavilion? Yin Taishang echoed, as if the title itself tasted strange on his tongue. Even Shangri-La, standing nearby, looked baffled. He knew Chengxin Pavilion was one of the great king-rank sects, but he never imagined they'd thrown their weight behind the Mu family. Seeing the confusion still clouding his friend's face, Muzi hurried to explain in more detail. You remember how Senior Gu secretly ventured to Tianbi Island and saw entry into the Xuanhuang secret realm. During that expedition, he clashed with the Duan family's forces, and by doing so, inadvertently dismantled their entire lineage. Shangri-La's eyes widened. So it was all Senior Gu's doing, he murmured. I thought the Duans had offended some hidden power. I never dreamed it was the Grand Elder himself who dealt them the final blow. Thank you, Grand Elder, for rescuing my Mu family from disaster. Muzi knelt and bowed deeply before the Grand Elder of Chenshin Pavilion. Had you not destroyed the Duan family, our 3 semi-king houses, including mine, would have been wiped out. No thanks necessary, the Grand Elder replied, waving a hand to dismiss the gratitude. I was only following orders. If Ye Cheng hadn't stepped in on Haiyue Island, I never would have intervened. Muzi exchanged a quick glance with Yin Taishang. They had already been weighing the advantages of joining Ye Cheng's army. Now Yin Taishang nodded without hesitation. It was the obvious choice. Without Ye Cheng's timely intervention, their Mu family, and surely the Duan house, would have met ruin. Aligning themselves with such a powerful leader was more than safety. It was opportunity. After all, look at Chenshin Pavilion. Once no stronger than a half-king sect, they've now ascended to true king-level status, bolstered by 2 masters of the Xuanhuang realm. If such meteoric success awaited those who served under Ye Cheng, how could the Mu family refuse? And so, with firm resolve, Muzi rose and prepared to pledge his family's loyalty to Ye Cheng's banner, eager for the new chapter of strength and honor that lay ahead. An extraordinary figure like Ye Cheng never lacked admirers, and this time the Mu family had seized their chance. How could Yin Taishang possibly refuse their proposal? Tianbi Island lay at the threshold of the Xuanhuang secret realm's treacherous waters. From its rocky shore, a modest ship designed for barely 100 passengers was already carving through the choppy sea toward the realm's hidden entrance. On board, most of the cultivators were true spirit realm practitioners, while a handful had recently broken into the early calamity realm. None possessed a fortune in spirit stones, so they couldn't secure passage on the larger vessels reserved for half-kings or higher-level calamity masters. Instead, they formed this temporary alliance, each leaning on the others for protection against roving sea beasts. Despite their limited individual strength, the combined skill of the group was often enough to repel the dangerous leviathans lurking beneath the waves. In fact, dozens of makeshift flotillas like theirs set out daily. Among those bound for Xuanhuang's secret realm, casual cultivators below the calamity realm still made up the vast majority. After all, the realm was steeped in legend, tales of lost treasures, forgotten martial techniques, and unspeakable perils that beckoned dreamers and daredevils alike. Not long ago, one of Xianxia sect's Taishang elders had been nothing more than an outer disciple in the true spirit realm. By sheer luck, he discovered the legacy of a king-level master of Xuantian Palace, hidden deep within the Xuanhuang secret realm. From that moment on, his rise was meteoric. He advanced from a lowly spirit cultivator to a sovereign of the calamity realm, and now he sits among the 3 supreme elders of Xianxia sect. All it took was one expedition into the secret realm to find his chance. Stories like his abound. Tales of inner sea heroes who seize world-shaking inheritances and carve a path to the pinnacle of power draw countless aspirants from the outer 4 seas. Who wouldn't dream of matching the legends of the Zhenwu sect, claiming their birthright, turning weakness into strength, and ultimately standing atop the South China Sea? On the deck of a small sea vessel, Ye Cheng, a calamity realm cultivator specializing in spirit consciousness, sat cross-legged, eyes closed. He extended his mind into the ship's chi flow, steering it with delicate, mental currents to weave around lurking sea monsters. This stretch of ocean marked the boundary between the inner and outer seas. Though less teeming with calamity realm beasts than the inner waters, the outer reaches were far from safe. One wrong move here, and even a seasoned master could find themselves overwhelmed. If it were just a run-of-the-mill Calamity Realm monster, even 100 soldiers supported by several Calamity Realm masters could barely manage it together. But a 4th-tier Calamity Realm beast, a mid-level or higher, would spell certain doom. That was why every Calamity Realm expert aboard the spirit-linked sea vessel kept their guard unbreakably tight. Alert! Multiple Tribulation Realm monsters are converging fast. Stay sharp! A sudden gale tore across the deck. The cultivator tasked with channeling the ship's spirit sense snapped his eyes open and peered anxiously at the waters behind them. In his mind's eye, a powerful presence was closing in. Not one, two, no, there's a third right behind them. His face already grave, drained of color as the second creature breached his spirit sense boundary. Moments later, two gargantuan sea monsters heaved themselves into view, one charging at the bow, the other bearing down on the stern. From the crew's ranks came a collective gasp of dread. On the quarterdeck, Ye Cheng's heart clenched. He had anticipated danger on this voyage, but nothing prepared him for 3 Tribulation Realm titans striking from the waves at once. He drew in a steadying breath and called out, "All hands, brace yourselves. Distribute the battle staves and prepare containment spells, now." As the sea monsters roared and reared, the ship's cultivators sprang into action, their spiritual auras flaring against the dark water's edge. This battle would decide whether the spirit-linked sea vessel completed its mission or became another ship lost beneath the stormy waves. "Look, there are riders on those 2 Tribulation Realm sea monsters," someone cried out. As the beasts drew nearer, curious eyes picked out tiny silhouettes perched on their ridges. To everyone's astonishment, they were 2 children, a little boy and a little girl, no more than 4 or 5 years old. The crowd fell deathly silent, hearts pounding. What on earth were these youngsters doing here? Chapter 38. Ye Cheng laughed as he clung to the coarse mane of the sea monster beneath him. "Big sis, look how fast it swims. I'm almost keeping up. Let's ride them straight to the secret realm's entrance." Beside him, Xianxia let out an excited shriek as she bounced along her own mount's broad back. "What an incredible creature! I'm definitely asking Father to raise one of these at home." From the deck of the ship came a stunned murmur. "Are those pet monsters?" At once, anxious glances passed among the onlookers. A veteran cultivator from the Calamity Realm, a master of spiritual perception, stepped forward, frowning. "No, these aren't domesticated beasts. The dark energy and savage aura radiating from them. Pet monsters don't exude such malevolence." Someone else ventured, voice barely above a whisper. "Then what could they be?" A heavy silence fell. The implication was too shocking to accept. 2 children, scarcely 5 years old, had tamed not ordinary monsters, but powerful sea beasts from the Calamity Realm. All eyes locked onto Ye Cheng and Xianxia with a mixture of awe and incredulity, as if the siblings themselves were the true marvels of this strange voyage. Ye Cheng gripped the sea monster's mane with both hands, his small frame riding high on its back. Around them, cultivators stared in disbelief. Subduing even 1 Tribulation Realm sea monster was an extraordinary feat. He'd managed 2. A furious roar split the air. The beast beneath Ye Cheng, a second-level Tribulation Realm sea monster, had finally had enough. With a powerful twist of its body, it tried to fling the boy into the waves. "Hey!" Ye Cheng cried, digging his heels into its flanks. He clung on like a barnacle to a ship's hull. "You big bully!" When the sea monster bucked again, nearly dislodging him, Ye Cheng's eyes flashed. He balled his fist and slammed it straight into the creature's head. Bang! The impact was like a full-power strike from a 3rd or 4th level Tribulation Realm warrior. The sea monster let out a final, shuddering roar and collapsed, lifeless. Without missing a beat, Ye Cheng vaulted off the fallen beast and sprang onto the back of his sister's scorched sea monster. He reached out and patted its scaled neck as if nothing extraordinary had happened. All around them, cultivators whispered in stunned awe. How could 2 children tame Tribulation Realm sea monsters, and one of them lay dead at their feet? But Ye Cheng just grinned, his eyes bright with mischief and triumph. "You're still obedient." The cultivators aboard the ship stood frozen in shock. Those who had doubted, even refused to believe, now found themselves utterly speechless. A Tribulation Realm sea monster felled with a single punch, and not just any Tribulation Realm beast, but a powerful one. In that stunned silence, they remembered the warning from the spirit consciousness expert. 2 sirens, one in front and one behind, are both bound to Little Nanhai. All eyes swung to the young cultivator at the bow, Ye Cheng, whose calm composure betrayed no strain. He hadn't needed to yank the siren's hair to control it. The creature under his foot dared not disobey. In that moment, Ye Cheng's importance became impossible to ignore. Such a scene would be passed off as myth in the future. No one would believe it. The subdued siren spared the little sea ship. Instead, it turned and darted off toward the entrance of the Xuanhuang's secret realm. But the witnesses' gaze never left Ye Cheng, their hearts pounding at what they had just seen. Gu Yunxi perched on the stone bench in their courtyard, arms crossed and gaze sharp as a blade. "Chen Zi," she called to her younger brother, using her favorite nickname for him. "Remember this. Once you enter the Xuanhuang secret realm, you must never let anyone know your real name. Got it?" Ye Cheng frowned. "Why not? I'm not going to cause father any trouble." "Then what name will you use?" Gu Yunxi pressed, her eyes narrowing. Her brother hesitated. Seeing him stumped, Gu Yunxi tapped her chin theatrically. "All right, I'll call you Chen Wang." "Chen Wang?" Ye Cheng repeated, testing the name on his tongue. "Huh, not bad. And what about you, sister? What should I call you?" Gu Yunxi's chest swelled with pride. "I'm Shi Huang." The moment the words left her lips, Ye Cheng scowled. "That's not fair. I get Chen Wang, and you get Shi Huang?" He stamped his foot, outraged by the lopsided titles. Before he could rant further, Gu Yunxi flicked his forehead with swift precision. Ye Cheng yelped and almost cried out in pain. "Because I'm your elder sister, and stronger to boot," she declared triumphantly, hands on her hips. "You'd better remember who's boss here, little brother. You don't dare disobey me." From the day he was born, Ye Cheng had been at his sister's mercy. Not only was Shi Huang 2 years older, her cultivation was leagues ahead of his. No matter how hard he trained, he'd never once managed to best her in a duel. And that, apparently, was never going to change. Gu Yunxi's power surged, nearly matching even Zhang Lianxin. The Xianxia Eclipse Thunder Body, a golden, 9th-grade divine physique, glowed around him like molten metal. Far above, multiple streaks of light blazed across the sky, immediately catching the siblings' attention. "King Realm experts, and more than one of them," Yunxi murmured, tension sharpening his voice. "Xiao Chen, hide your aura," he added, panting slightly as he scanned the heavens. Below, the 2 children perched atop a colossal sea serpent. From their vantage point, they saw the newcomers halt midair, expressions shifting from surprise to alarm. "Children, what are kids doing out here?" one of the strangers called down. Zhang Baiwei, gliding beside them, peered past the flicker of aura and froze in disbelief. The children could not have been more than 4 or 5 years old, and here they were, right on the edge of the deep-sea danger zone. Their parents must have been utterly reckless. Behind Baiwei, a procession of light streaked toward the Xuanhuang secret realm, the Zhang family on the move. Baiwei's indignant whisper floated upward to the elder beside her, Zhang Tianwang, who had been napping with his eyes closed. At her words, he snapped awake, glanced below, and abruptly froze himself. Zhang Tianwang, no matter how battle-hardened and perceptive, was plainly taken aback by the cultivation he sensed emanating from the 2 children. Although the brother and sister had immediately sealed off their breaths upon spotting him and his entourage, they could not hope to conceal themselves from a Tianwang-level powerhouse of Zhang Tianwang's caliber. A single, discerning glance revealed the true extent of their strength. "What's the matter, ancestor?" Zhang Baiwei asked, noticing the shock in Zhang Tianwang's eyes. To her, Ye Cheng and his younger sister were nothing more than 4 or 5-year-olds, hardly enough to unsettle someone who'd long ago reached the Tianwang realm. Zhang Tianwang's gaze shifted to his granddaughter. He spoke in a measured tone. "These 2 little ones aren't as ordinary as they look." Baiwei frowned, stepping forward for a closer inspection. But the 2 children seated quietly by the shore betrayed no hint of extraordinary power. "What makes you say that?" she asked. "They're just children. Why would such young disciples be out here in these treacherous waters? When we first arrived, they deliberately stilled their breaths." Zhang Tianwang explained, his tone even. He paused, then continued. "Of the 2 children, the boy is at the 1st level of the Calamity Realm." "What?" Zhang Baiwei gasped, her expression draining of color. Before she could collect herself, Zhang Tianwang dropped the next bombshell. "The little girl is at the 6th level of the Tribulation Realm." 6th level of the Tribulation Realm? Jiang Baiwei's voice shook with disbelief. The pair of children before her looked no older than 4 or 5. One barely a first-level cultivator, and the other already 6 levels in? It sounded laughable. Yet these were the words of King Jiang himself, and she could not afford to doubt him, especially when it came to that little girl. A mere child of 5, yet she'd broken through to the 6th level? For context, Jiang Baiwei was 20 and had already awakened her spirit body. She prided herself on being equal or even superior to Zhang Lianxin in her prime. And yet, despite all her efforts, she'd only reached the 5th level of the Tribulation Realm. No wonder even the family patriarch had been unnerved. These weren't just precocious children, they were outright prodigies, little monsters cloaked in child's flesh. Jiang Baiwei's heart sank. After all these years of cultivation, she was still no match for a mere 4 or 5-year-old child. The realization hit her like a hammer blow. King Jiang shook his head and murmured, "Let's go. There must be tremendous power backing those 2 youngsters. In all my years, I've never encountered anything like them." With that, his party passed by Gu Yunxi and Gu Ye Cheng and set off toward the Xuanhuang secret realm. As they walked away, King Jiang paused and glanced back at the 2 siblings. There was something about them, something oddly unsettling, that he couldn't quite put his finger on. Strange. Very strange. Chapter 39. A jagged tear in the fabric of space, taller than 10 feet, hovered above a lonely island at the crossroads of the inner and outer seas. This was the gateway to the Xuanhuang secret realm. When Gu Ye Cheng and his small party set foot on the shore, their eyes widened in disbelief. Before them stretched a sea of cultivators, practitioners from the Wanyao Nanhai, envoys from 7 or 8 neighboring empires, and delegations from countless sects and warbands. The sheer number of people pressed against the waterfront like migrating birds, each clamoring for a chance to step through the rift. Guling's hand flew to her chest. She had never seen such a gathering. Jianglin Town, home to the Gu family, barely housed 1/10 of these visitors, not counting those already inside the realm. "This is overwhelming," she whispered. Gu Ye Cheng drew her close and spoke in a low voice. "Once we pass through, keep an eye out for anyone bearing the Gu family crest. Stick together at all costs, and if you encounter members of the Chenshin Pavilion, seek their protection." He paused, watching the waves of people surge toward the portal. The Chenshin Pavilion was his secret command, a hidden faction within the family that had only recently come to light among their kin. Until now, he had never spoken of it. With a final glance at his companions, he stepped forward into the crack of space, prepared for whatever lay beyond. "Yes, go on in." Ye Cheng stepped forward, ready to slip through the fissure in the cave wall. But then he froze, his attention snagged by 2 figures nearby. They were both women of striking beauty and poise. The one in front, dressed in flowing jade-green robes, was, apart from Zhang Lianxin, the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. If Zhang Lianxin scored a perfect 100, this woman would easily rate a 98. But it wasn't her looks alone that caught Gu Ye Cheng's eye. It was her aura of power. He recognized the energy signature of the Xuanqing realm vibrating around her. She appeared to be about his age, and given the strength she radiated, he suspected she must be a genius listed among the realm's top prodigies. As Gu Ye Cheng studied them, the 2 women returned his gaze with equal curiosity. The younger, softer-featured girl standing behind the woman in green let out a teasing laugh. "Miss, are you smitten already?" The woman in green rolled her eyes, her voice low and measured. "Don't be ridiculous. I simply can't read him at all." Gu Ye Cheng felt a spark of intrigue. Whoever these women were, they were no ordinary cultivators, and their interest in him was unmistakable. With a steadying breath, he stepped fully into the cave, determined to learn more about these mysterious new arrivals. "I never would have guessed someone like him would show up in this humble Wanyao Nanhai. Not even Miss could see through him?" The girl standing just behind the woman in the green robe looked Gu Ye Cheng over with curiosity. After a long moment, though, she shook her head. There was nothing unusual about him, only that he was unusually handsome. Together with the others, they passed through the entrance to the Xuanhuang secret realm. A few breaths later, 2 small figures atop sea creatures arrived as well. "Is this the Xuanhuang secret realm?" There are so many people, cried one of the youngsters. He had large, dark eyes that looked as if they could swallow the sea. After we enter, stick close to me, okay? Said the other, taking her brother's hand. They stepped into the crack. Instantly, the world around them stretched and blurred, and a sudden, brilliant light forced both siblings to shut their eyes tight. When the light dimmed and the elder brother dared to peek again, everything had changed. No longer on a bare, wind-swept island, they found themselves in a thick, vibrant jungle. Towering trees formed a dense canopy overhead, and the sounds of unseen creatures echoed in the humid air. "Is this really the Xuanhuang's secret realm?" the little boy whispered, awe in his voice. He turned to his sister. "Sister?" But when he glanced at his side, the girl who'd been holding his hand was gone. The rush of jungle calls filled his ears, and for a moment he was utterly alone. Ye Cheng spun around in confusion, only to find himself utterly alone. "Sister!" His voice cracked, panic threading through every syllable. "Sister!" When he realized Guyanxi truly wasn't by his side, tiny tears, no bigger than beans, trickled down his porcelain skin. Since childhood, he had never been apart from his sister. Wherever she went, he followed, drawing strength from her presence. That was why, even when they'd first sailed the open sea, he'd been so boisterous and fearless, because she was there to protect him. But this place was different. It was alien, vast, and there was no sign of Guyanxi. A cold dread gripped his heart. Neither of them had known anything about the Xuanhuang secret realm before stepping inside, least of all that newcomers could be dispersed to random corners of its hidden lands. A choking sob escaped him. "Sister!" Overcome by fear, Ye Cheng sank to his knees and wept, his cries echoing into the emptiness as he frantically called for her. After crying for a while, Ye Cheng finally fell silent. Moments later, a young woman of 16 or 17 appeared on the path, guided by the sound of his sobbing. She halted when she saw him, his cheeks still wet, his shoulders trembling like a frightened kitten. "Child?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. The girl was Yan Mengqi, an outer disciple of Lanyue Palace. Lanyue, known as the Moon-Raising Sect, is a semi-sovereign clan in the southern sea of 10,000 demons, with thousands of disciples under its banner. When the Xuanhuang secret realm opened, not only did its inner gate adepts descend to explore, but a great many outer disciples seized the chance as well. Yan Mengqi was among them. Of only average talent, she'd long been shackled by her family's insistence on an arranged marriage to a man she neither knew nor liked. She hated the idea of her life being decided for her, yet felt powerless to resist until the secret realm's sudden appearance. If she could earn even a single breakthrough inside, advance to the inner gate, she'd have the standing to defy her family's decree and chart her own course. She had only just entered the realm and was about to venture onward when his cries stopped abruptly. Now standing over the small boy, Yan Mengqi hesitated. Should she offer help or leave the mysterious child to his own devices? Yan Mengqi followed the soft, ragged sobbing until she came upon a small clearing shaded by ancient pines. There, perched on a low boulder, was a little boy no more than 4 or 5 years old. His cheeks were streaked with tears, and his tiny shoulders shook with each breath. Mengqi felt a surge of pity and a pang of anger at whoever had brought such a young child into the perilous Xuanhuang secret realm. She hurried forward. "Hey there," she said gently, crouching to meet his eyes. The boy looked up, startled. For a moment, he brightened as if he thought she was someone he knew. Then he realized she wasn't his sister, Guyanxi, and his tears welled up again, louder than before. Without thinking, Mengqi scooped him into her arms. "Shh, don't cry," she murmured, rocking him gently. "Are you looking for your sister? Is she here too?" The boy buried his face against her shoulder and clung to her tunic. Mengqi stroked his hair, whispering calming words until his sobs subsided. Slowly, his breathing steadied and his grip loosened. At last, the tears stopped altogether, and in the hush of the forest, only the faint echo of his hiccups remained. Mengqi smiled softly. "There, see? You're safe now. Let's find your sister, all right? I promise I won't let anything happen to you." Gently, she stood and set him down, her hand still resting protectively on his shoulder. Together they stepped deeper into the misty realm, determined to reunite this lost child with his family. Ye Cheng sat on the stone bench, his face streaked. with fresh tears and his eyes red and swollen. He looked up at Yan Mengqi, voice quivering. "Big sister, can you really help me find my sister?" Yan Mengqi knelt before him and gently helped him to his feet, brushing away the tears on his cheeks. She offered him a reassuring smile. "Of course I can. Now, what's your name? What's your sister called? And how old are you both? Come on, tell me everything so we can start looking right away." He swallowed hard, voice barely above a whisper. "My name, it's Chen Wang. My sister's name is Shi Huang. We're twins, same age." Halfway through his explanation, Ye Cheng's eyes darted away. He pressed his lips together, remembering his sister's warning never to reveal their true names to strangers. Yan Mengqi repeated the names thoughtfully. "Chen Wang, Shi Huang." She frowned, puzzled. "That's an unusual pair of names, so you're both the same age. And where are your parents now?" The boy's shoulders curled inward. They're still in the secret realm," he managed. "I don't know when they can come back." A soft breeze rustled the bamboo grove around them, carrying the distant echoes of an unfamiliar world. Yan Mengqi had expected to find an older sibling who could guide him, but instead she stood beside two vulnerable children lost in this strange land. Her resolve solidified. She reached out and clasped his small hand. "Don't worry," she said firmly. "I'll help you find Shi Huang, and I'll do everything I can to bring your parents home too. Now, stay close to me." Hope flickered across Ye Cheng's tear-stained face. He nodded, and together they stepped onto the winding path that led deeper into the secrets of the realm, two children and their newfound protector, united in a promise to reunite their family. "By the way, I'm Yan Mengqi. Just call me Sister Yan." She paused, surveying the frightened little boy before her. Deep down, she knew the odds of locating his sister and parents in the vast Xuanhuang secret realm were vanishingly small. The territory stretched endlessly. Without extraordinary luck, they'd never cross paths. Yet Yan Mengqi's kindness wouldn't allow her to abandon him. "I'll take you with me," she decided. "If we still can't find your family by the time we leave the realm, we'll keep searching together out in the mortal world." And so, the unlikely pair, Sister Yan, tall and confident, and the small, hopeful child, stepped forward into the swirling mists of the Xuanhuang secret realm. Chapter 40. "Sister Yan, look! I found some spirit herbs." Ye Cheng exclaimed, holding out a handful of freshly unearthed plants. The two of them had been inside the Xuanhuang secret realm for several hours. Thanks to Yan Mengqi's careful planning, sticking to safe paths and steering clear of known monster lairs, they'd encountered almost no trouble. Back before they'd entered the realm, Yan Mengqi had laid down one simple rule: avoid any conflict, whether with beasts or fellow cultivators. As a first-level true spirit, her power was practically negligible here, and she had no hope of competing for high-tier treasures or ancient relics. Instead, she was hunting for spirit herbs and fruits scattered throughout the realm, anything that might help her break through to the inner gate. Even low-grade finds would be useful. A few rare, powerful specimens could change her fortunes entirely. Ye Cheng's little hands were smudged with soil, but his eyes gleamed with excitement as he offered the pale green glowleaf blossoms to his sister. Yan Mengqi smiled, taking the herbs and inspecting them carefully. Each leaf thrummed with latent energy, a promising sign for anyone seeking to refine their cultivation. "Good work," she said, tucking the herbs into her satchel. "If we keep this up, we might gather enough spirit materials before sundown." Ye Cheng beamed. Together, they pressed deeper into the misty forest, determined to collect every precious herb and fruit they could find. "Xiaochen, you don't have to give me all these herbs you picked." Ye Cheng's spiritual sense was extraordinarily keen, so he'd uncovered far more herbs along the trail than Yan Mengqi had. Yet low-grade ingredients held little appeal for him. After sampling a few spiritual fruits for nourishment, he cheerfully handed the rest over to Yan Mengqi. She'd looked after him every step of the way, gently teasing him like a doting older sister, and he had come to trust her completely. "I don't need them," he insisted with a shake of his head. "Take them all. They're yours." He barely glanced at the handful of first and second grade herbs in her basket. Back home, the fruits Yan Mengqi shared with him were almost always third or fourth grade, far more potent than these meager picks. Low-level spiritual materials simply weren't worth his time. I'll hold on to it for you until we get out, Yan Mengqi said, reaching over to take the pouch from Ye Cheng. She crouched beside him and gently brushed his hair back. And Ye Cheng, keep your voice down, okay? I'm not weak, he protested, his cheeks puffing out in defiance. If we attract monsters, or worse, some rogue monks, we'll be in trouble. Yan Mengqi's lips curved in a soft, knowing smile. He lowered his head immediately, looking every bit the contrite child. All right, let's go. She ruffled his hair one more time, not scolding him but simply reminding him how careful they had to be. Then Ye Cheng froze. Sister Yan, someone's coming. He pointed to a cluster of shadows moving swiftly between the trees ahead. More than a dozen figures were closing in. Yan Mengqi's heart skipped. With a quick tug, she pulled him behind a large boulder, and they both pressed their backs against the cold stone, stifling their breathing. Yan Mengqi peered around the edge of the rock. Relief washed over her features. Lan senior brother? Liu senior brother? Hidden in the undergrowth, she recognized the newcomers instantly. Her earlier tension melted away. These were familiar allies, not foes. All of them were disciples of Lanyue Palace. Two among them, senior brother Lan and senior brother Liu, were true intersect disciples, each having attained at least the 7th level of true spirit. The moment Yan Mengqi recognized these familiar robes, she slipped out from behind the boulder and took Ye Cheng's hand. Senior brother Lan, senior brother Liu. A few of the approaching cultivators glanced at Yan Mengqi but didn't acknowledge her. As an outer sect disciple, she was practically invisible to the inner sect members, who numbered in the dozens. Then someone spotted the small silver moon embroidered on her chest. Recognition flitted across their faces, and their caution melted away. So you're one of our outer sect juniors, said senior brother Lan, his brocade robes swaying as he offered a polite nod. Since fate has brought us together, let us travel in company. He smiled and abruptly froze, his eyes locked onto the young man at Yan Mengqi's side. It was the first time the inner sect cultivators had laid eyes on Ye Cheng, and there was something about him that left them utterly speechless. The afternoon sun filtered through the jade-green pines as the Lanyue Palace disciples gathered at the edge of a mist-shrouded pass. Senior brother Lan stood by a moss-covered boulder, silent and watchful. Beside him, senior brother Liu frowned, arms crossed. A dozen other cultivators hovered nearby, their robes brushing the forest floor. One of them, senior brother Liu, finally broke the hush. Who is he? He demanded, nodding toward the young boy standing meekly at Yan Mengqi's side. Yan Mengqi drew a deep breath. He's Ye Cheng, she said hurriedly, the little brother I found inside the Xuanhuang secret realm. She glanced at the boy, saw his wide, anxious eyes, then turned back to the others. We met by chance, and I've been escorting him ever since. Senior brother Lan's expression remained unreadable, but Liu's lips curled in disapproval. He stepped forward, his voice low but carrying through the still air. He's just a child, Liu said. Taking him along will slow us down, and we all know the Xuanhuang secret realm is no ordinary trial. It's teeming with dangers. You have no real bond with him. It's reckless to keep him. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. One of the younger disciples chimed in. She's right, it's a kindness misplaced. Better to leave him behind. Yan Mengqi's cheeks flushed. She glanced at Ye Cheng, his shoulders hunched, head bowed, and bit her lip. But if I leave him, she began, her voice trembling. He might. She swallowed, struggling for words. Liu shook his head. Exactly. You're responsible for him now. If he dies, do you think you'll recover from that guilt? And if he survives, he still hinders our progress. The path of enlightenment waits for no one. A heavy silence fell. The forest seemed to hold its breath as Yan Mengqi weighed her options. Around her, even senior brother Lan remained still, his unreadable gaze fixed on her. Finally, Yan Mengqi closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. Fine. Her voice was soft but resolute. I'll leave him here, by the waterfall where the mist can hide him. I hope, she added, turning toward Ye Cheng, you understand I'm doing this for everyone's safety. The boy lifted his head at her words, dark eyes shining with confusion and fear. Behind him, the disciples exchanged uneasy glances. Even as Yan Mengqi stepped away, a single thought echoed in the hush of the ancient pines. In a world ruled by power and peril, where every choice could mean life or death, mercy was often the heaviest burden of all. Yan Mengqi understood what senior brother Liu was planning, but she couldn't abandon Ye Cheng now. Sensing her hesitation, the little boy gripped her hand tightly, eyes wide with fear that he, too, might be left behind. With their sister gone, Yan Mengqi was all he had. Her resolve wavered at his display of trust. "Brother Liu," she pleaded, voice trembling, "I know what you've asked, but I can't leave him. I've gathered plenty of spirit herbs for you. Take them all. Just please let me take Ye Cheng with me." Brother Lan glanced at the pouch of herbs in her outstretched hand and waved it away. "All right, you can go with him." He refused to accept her gift, but his tone softened. Known for his kindness, Brother Lan was well loved by the junior disciples, and Yan Mengqi's earnest plea melted his heart. Senior Brother Liu, however, scowled and snorted in disdain. Without another word, he turned on his heel. "Take him, then," Senior Brother Liu said cold. "Lie, but if you won't accompany us, don't expect me to cover for your absence. Spare me the theatrics." "Senior Brother Liu," several disciples called after him. Then one stepped forward and shouted, "Whoever wants to follow me, step this way. Anyone who'd rather not go, feel free to stay behind and keep our kind-hearted Brother Lan company." At those words, the dozen or so disciples of Lanyue Palace exchanged awkward glances between the departing Senior Brother Liu and Senior Brother Lan. One young man cleared his throat. "Senior Brother Liu?" "Aye!" A young woman bit her lip. "I'll stay," she whispered to Lan before glancing at Liu's retreating back. In the end, out of 12 disciples, including Liu and Lan, 7 fell in behind Senior Brother Liu's confident stride, while only 3 remained. Their choice wasn't merely about loyalties. Senior Brother Liu had already reached the 8th level of true spirit cultivation. Lan, despite his sterling reputation, was only at the 7th. In the perilous Xuanhuang secret realm, most felt far safer following the stronger master. Lan forced a rueful smile as he watched Liu's group vanish into the mist. He turned to the 3 who stayed. "So you're not coming?" he asked, eyes twinkling with a mixture of resignation and relief. The 3 of them were only true spirit disciples of the 1st or 2nd rank, 2 from the outer sect and 1 from the inner. They exchanged bitter smiles. "We've been hoping to join the mission," one of them admitted, "but Senior Brother Liu clearly doesn't want us along. He's never said so outright, but every word and gesture drips with disdain. He thinks we're too weak, a liability. I wouldn't be surprised if he's been looking for any excuse to ditch us," added the 2nd. This incident was his perfect opportunity. Lan Wang nodded in understanding. "All right then," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "I may not have Liu Yang's power, but I, Lan Wang, will never abandon any junior brother or sister who wants to come. Yan Mengqi, you're with me. Bring the young man at your side. Ye Cheng." "Thank you, Senior Brother Lan," Yan Mengqi said, her relief plain on her face. And just like that, the original duo became a party of 6.